Chapter 862. As time passed, Broad Creed Mountain in the Spirit Inheritance region of the Royal Reed Sea was still operating in an orderly manner. The basic facilities here were already extremely complete. Still, the entire sect did not relax. The day when Kong Ping, Luo Ziyuan, and the others would escape from the deep sea of the clear scenic region was already drawing closer and closer. According to Yan Zhaoga's initial estimations, starting from this day, it would roughly be a year or two at best or 3 at worst. That would roughly be the time that Kong Ping and the others would escape. That would likely be the time of the final battle. Before that, King Xuanqing would sit over the capital of the Grand Xian dynasty, maintaining his defenses as he would not leave at all. As a result, Broad Creed Mountain, the North Sea Sword Pavilion, Copperman Island, and the Dim Darkness sect, and the other powers would find this troublesome for a time. The Grand Xian dynasty's capital had been managed by 3 kings of the Xian dynasty for over 100 years, its sturdiness comparable to that of the North Sea Sword Pavilion's grinding hut region's sword domain. King Xuanqing of the Mid-Immortal Bridge Martial Saint Realm had the home advantage, as he possessed shocking strength. Also, while the King Xian spear had been lost in the Royal Reed Sea, who knew if King Xuanqing had brought back another high-grade sacred artifact this time? High-grade sacred artifacts were extremely hard to come by, as not every Immortal Bridge martial saint possessed one. This was a fact. However, the Grand Xian dynasty, Shunlingzi, and Daoist Shi clearly had extraordinary backgrounds, as they could not be judged by normal standards. The anti-Xian forces had to be cautious as well. Still, whatever the case, if Kong Ping, Gu Zhang, and He Dongqing managed to escape from the deep sea of the clear scenic region, the Grand Xian dynasty would be even more powerful. Dragging things out would not be the best outcome. If they could first take care of King Xuanqing before Kong Ping and the others managed to escape, it would undoubtedly play a decisive role in the overall situation. In order to take care of King Xuanqing, sufficient strength was required. Yan Zhaoga had entered secluded cultivation with this in mind. Aside from him, the others of Broad Creed Mountain and the peak experts of the anti-Xian forces of the Royal Reed Sea were all making their own preparations as they raced against time. One day, within a secluded room in Broad Creed Mountain, a tall youth with a jade-like face opened his eyes. It was Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. Yan Zhaoga had headed to the vast ocean world himself, while the Northern Ocean clone remained here. With the main body in death seclusion, the connection between the clone and the main body had become weak, as even the Northern Ocean clone's movements and reactions had become slightly sluggish. However, it was still fine for him to meditate, cultivate, and interact with others. As the Northern Ocean clone left the secluded room, he saw Ing Longtu arriving, seemingly having something to ask of him. Having answered Ing Longtu's doubts, the Northern Ocean clone asked casually, "Has my father still not left seclusion?" Roughly half a year ago, Yan Di had also entered Converting Lake Peak, entering secluded cultivation once more. Ing Longtu replied, "Martial Uncle's sect master once left a message saying that he would need roughly a year's time in total. There's still half a year." The Northern Ocean clone nodded, feeling rather expectant. Yan Di had previously already attained the peak of the mid-seeing divinity stage. If he succeeded in his secluded cultivation this time, he would likely be able to advance further. At this time, it was even more necessary for Yuan Zhengfeng and the others to raise their vigilance to prevent Yan Di from being disturbed, lest all their previous efforts go to waste. The same principle applied to Yan Zhaoga himself. Just as he was thinking about this, Grandmaster Yuan Zhengfeng's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. "Zhaoga, come to the Heaven Rising Peak's main hall." Yuan Zhengfeng's tone was somewhat solemn. The Northern Ocean clone's heart jolted slightly as he left some instructions for Ing Longtu before immediately heading to Heaven Rising Peak. Entering the main hall, he saw that Yuan Zhengfeng and Fang Zhuan were both present. Besides Fu Enshu, who was observing the situation in the vicinity of the Phoenix-bearing region, Su Fei, and the other experts of Broad Creed Mountain with higher cultivation bases in the world beyond worlds were all present. Seeing the Northern Ocean clone enter, Yuan Zhengfeng cut to the chase. "Xiaoge, I have bad news. The east of the Royal Reed Sea, the Dragon Elephant region. This was where the peak power of the Royal Reed Sea, Copperman Island, was located. As compared to the Radiant Light Sect's Sun Moon Peak and the Dim Darkness Sect's main altar that had already been destroyed, and the North Sea's Grinding Hut region's sword domain that had nearly suffered the calamity of the Heavenly Fire Tribulation Thunder Formation, and was besieged by countless experts of the Grand Xian dynasty, Copper Men Island of the Dragon Avatar region had remained safe and sound all these years. Because here were the treasures of the Copper Men Island passed down from generation to generation, the three giant Copper Men, possessing the geographical advantage of Copper Men Island. So long as they did not leave the island, these three Copper Men would be able to unleash the might of three immortal bridge martial saints. The Royal Reed Sea's #1 geographical advantage was well-deserved. This also caused Copper Men Island to become the most defensible place in the Royal Reed Sea, with even the Grand Xian dynasty not willing to directly bite down on this tough bone. This had always been viewed as the final fortress and path of retreat of the anti-Xian alliance. It was just that Copper Men Island appeared to be more than sufficient in its defense, lacking in its offensive capabilities. Chief Gongsun Wu was not someone who was content with the status quo, as he had always been striving for greater improvements in his strength. Firstly, he desired to break through the bottleneck that had always been present, stepping into the immortal bridge stage and stepping into the 7th level of the Martial Saint realm. In the past, amongst the peak experts of the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm in the Royal Reed Sea, he, Gongsun Wu, the chief of the Radiant Light sect, Luo Ziyuan, the chief of the Dim Darkness sect, Zhou Haoxing, and the Grand Xian dynasty's King Xuanmu, had been the strongest. Comparatively speaking, Gongsun Wu had been a little weaker. Now, however, Zhou Haoxing had been heavily injured by the star-plucking practitioner Guan Lide of the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm, having only just recovered these past few years. Luo Ziyuan had been imprisoned and trapped by a black hole, his strength and drive having been worn down, while King Xuanmu had already perished. Gongsun Wu had instead become the one in the lead. Still, he could not be careless. He could already feel how terrifying that newly arisen power from a lower world in the Spirit Inheritance region was. Those who had been able to cultivate to their current cultivation level were definitely not simple people. Beneath the intermingling of pressure and motivation, Gongsun Wu had finally shown signs of breaking through his bottleneck in recent years, as he was just a half step away from the 7th level of the Martial Saint realm, the early immortal bridge stage, which he could cross at any time. Today, however, there was only despair within his heart. He had a premonition that he might never be able to cross this tribulation. At this moment, the sky above Copperman Island seemed to be shaking slightly like the light of water, somewhat hazy and indistinct. Yet, it could not be seen clearly, as one would have to look very carefully before they would be able to vaguely discover some clues about it. Enveloped by this radiance, the entire Copperman Island seemed to have turned dry and dry. The scenes lost their luster. Life forms lost their vitality as time came to a standstill. The people on the island seemed to have lost their lives, yet were still lifelike puppets. The entire Dragon Avatar region seemed to have frozen in time. The only ones who were still barely able to move were the three massive bronze men, who seemed indomitable as they shot into the skies, as well as Chief Gongsun Wu. The three bronze men opened their mouths, emitting soundless roars as though they were alive. Their 6 arms rose together, propping up the sky as they resisted that light of water which enveloped the entire island, not continuing to descend. Gong Sun Wu's tone was dry. Such strength, such attainments in the time-flowing sword. Shunlingzi. There was no response from the sky at all, only that sword light, which resembled water as time froze unceasingly, wearing down the 3 great bronze men down below. Beneath the corrosion of the sword light, there was no sound of ghosts wailing or gods howling, no heaven-shocking, earth-shaking changes. However, the surface of the bronze men was rapidly decaying and mottled as they showed signs of decline. It was as though, however powerful they were, they would still be hard-pressed to resist the flow of time. On this day, Copper Men Island, which had once been the #1 defensive location in the Royal Reed Sea, was broken through. To be continued. Chapter 863. North of the Royal Reed Sea, Grinding Hut region. Where the North Sea Sword Pavilion was located, the North Sea Sword Pavilion's sword realm, which had been passed down through the ages, had already been completely activated and was operating at full power. Sword Chi soared into the sky, enveloping the entire Grinding Hut continent. However, the sword Chi was constantly being whittled away and was gradually rotting away. They were like divine weapons that were unable to withstand the corrosion of time and became rusty. A figure stood in the void, manipulating the sword light and guiding the sword Chi of the sword world, stirring up waves. It was none other than the Pavilion Lord of the North Sea Sword Pavilion, an expert of the early Immortal Bridge stage, Gu Hong. In terms of cultivation bases, he was the person with the highest cultivation base amongst the anti-Xian forces in the Royal Reed Sea. At this moment, he had the advantage of the Grinding Hut region's sword domain. When he unleashed his strength, it was as if he had the divine might to overturn the sea. However, such a miraculous, vast ocean divine sword appeared pale and powerless under the illumination of the water-like sword light that enveloped the heavens. The faint sword light that seemed ordinary and almost undetectable actually split apart the tsunami like a hot knife through butter and headed straight for the North Sea Sword Pavilion on Grinding Hut Island. There was no fear on Gu Hong's face, but despair had already surfaced in his eyes. On that day, the sword realm of the Grinding Hut province shattered, and the North Sea Sword Pavilion was destroyed. Atop broad Creed Mountain's heaven-rising peak, Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone sat opposite Yuan Zhengfeng and the others, all of them having solemn expressions on their faces. "Are you sure it's Shunlingzi?" Yuan Zhengfeng asked in a deep voice. Fang Zhuan nodded. "That is what the information we received said," Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone said, wanting to single-handedly take down Copperman Island. Even with the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword, Kong Ping does not have full confidence. It can only be Shen Lingzi, who possesses a higher cultivation base. While Kong Ping mentioned the title Grand Master Shen Lingzi back then, and therefore could be an expert of the same generation as Shen Lingzi, I still lean towards the possibility that Shen Lingzi did not perish and has returned to the Royal Reed Sea himself. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for him to pass through Golden Court Mountain. Over 100 years ago, when the Grand Xian dynasty had first entered the Royal Reed Sea, the person with the highest cultivation base had been their founder, King Xianwen of the 8th level of the Martial Saint realm. At that time, Shun Lingzi and Daoist Shi had both been early Immortal Bridge Martial Saints. However, amongst the three, not only did Shun Lingzi cultivate in the jade clear lineage's Aeon Light, heavenly scripture, his talent in the martial Tao was also peerless, his strength far surpassing other experts of the same cultivation level. In terms of actual combat that year, Shun Lingzi of the 7th level of the Martial Saint realm might not have been inferior to King Xianwen of the 8th level of the Martial Saint realm. Now, more than 100 years had passed. Seeing how Shun Lingzi had broken through Copperman Island so quickly, it was very likely that his strength had already risen to another level. Furthermore, he definitely had a high-grade sacred weapon with him, this time. Yuan Zhengfeng looked at Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. This is an undeclared battle, wanting to defeat us one by one. The Northern Ocean clone lightly rubbed his temples. First easy, then difficult. Exterminating them all, not caring about enmity, sweeping through the entire Royal Reed Sea. Comparatively speaking, Broad Creed Mountain currently had the greatest enmity with the Grand Xian dynasty and Shunlingzi's lineage. Madame Kang, like Kang Ping, He Dongcheng, and Gu Zhang, were all disciples of Shunlingzi. Because of her death, the North Sea Sword Pavilion and the Radiant Light sect were similarly hated. Meanwhile, the enmity between Copperman Island and the Grand Xian dynasty had clearly eased greatly. To put it more bluntly, with the Grand Xian dynasty being so great that it could not be resisted, there was still the possibility of Copperman Island submitting. However, Shunlingzi had chosen Copperman Island first this time. It was like a soundless declaration, taking no captives, not accepting surrenders, sweeping through the Royal Reed Sea. It was already no longer a case of those who submit to me prospering and those who oppose me perishing. Instead, all those who were once enemies of me were to be slain without question. Shui Fei frowned. Isn't this a little too arrogant? He, an outsider, wants to reign supreme over the Royal Reed Sea. How could the Southeastern Exalt and Golden Court Mountain possibly agree to this? Golden Court Mountain currently has more than just a single peak expert sitting over the Royal Reed Sea, the Shadow Mountain Sword King. Fang Zhuan said, "This means that the major figure behind Shunlingzi has exerted his strength. In the world beyond worlds, there were only the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors who could suppress the exalts of 10 territories." The Northern Ocean clone said, "It would also not be so easy to suppress them. The Southeastern Exalt is not a lone force. The more important reason is that the enmity between Golden Court Mountain and the Southern Blazing Heaven territory has already become extremely intense. Just west of the Royal Reed Sea, the Southern Blazing Heaven territory also has a major force pressuring its borders. Lin Hanhua and the others are currently focusing their attention on the outside. Yan Zhaoga and the others were all paying close attention to the developments in this area as well. Therefore, after Lin Hanhua and the others had focused their attention on the Southern Blazing Heaven territory, whether it was Broad Creed Mountain, the North Sea Sword Pavilion, Copperman Island, or the Dim Darkness sect, they had all raised their vigilance in case the Grand Xian dynasty suddenly rose in revolt. Broad Creed Mountain had once suggested that the 3 of them might just join forces. Still, the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Copperman Island were clearly unwilling to just give up on their territories just like that, whether it was Coppermen Island guarded by the 3 Coppermen or the sword domain of the Grinding Hut region. They indeed possessed a very strong territorial advantage. However, the enemy's attack this time had been too ferocious. While it was just one person, he was extremely powerful. Beneath this sudden assault, Coppermen Island, which had once been the number 1 defensive location in the Royal Reed Sea, had been directly broken through. Yan Zhaoga had been in secluded cultivation in the vast ocean world, while Yan Di had been in secluded cultivation in the world beyond worlds. While the other side's strategy seemed to be to start with the easy and then the difficult, who knew if it was just a ploy? If the Northern Ocean clone and the others had gone to reinforce the North Sea Sword Pavilion, and the other side had turned and attacked Broad Creed Mountain, the consequences would have been inconceivable. Therefore, upon receiving the news, Broad Creed Mountain had strengthened its defenses, contacting the North Sea Sword Pavilion even as they held urgent internal discussions, asking Gu Hong and the others to simply give up on the sword domain of the Grinding Hut region. and hurry over to the Spirit Inheritance region to join them. However, whether they would be able to make it in time, and whether they would be willing to do so, was another matter altogether. The Northern Ocean clone said, "From the looks of it now, it should be some sort of tacit agreement. Golden Court Mountain will not make a move, allowing the internal powers of the Royal Reed Sea to battle the Grand Xian dynasty. While the Grand Xian dynasty has external reinforcements, they must have been those who have been in the Royal Reed Sea before. There cannot be any new experts. Therefore, I suspect that the expert who broke through Copperman Island is Shunlingzi, who left that year, returning to the Royal Reed Sea. Within the Great Hall, everyone's expressions were rather solemn. Now, a special internal technique of the clan suddenly circulated an urgent message. I have yet to arrive at the territory of the Grinding Hut region, not even having the time to see those of the North Sea Sword Pavilion, but a great battle has already erupted in the direction of the North Sea. Hearing the news, Yuan Zhengfeng and the others were all rendered speechless. After breaking through Copperman Island, Shunlingzi actually did not stop as he directly attacked the North Sea Sword Pavilion. With his great cultivation base and speed, with no one delaying or obstructing him, he had hurried from the east of the Royal Reed Sea to the north within a short period of time. As a result, the communication between Broad Creed Mountain, the North Sea Sword Pavilion, and Copperman Island appeared slow. Fang Juan was silent for a moment before he said, "It is unknown how long the North Sea Sword Pavilion can hold on for. If it is broken through in less than half a day, the time it takes for our clan's disciples to send a message would probably already be enough for him to rush over to our Spirit Inheritance region." Yuan Zhengfeng stood up from his seat. "Copperman Island is harder to break through than the North Sea Sword Pavilion. Still, it was not able to hold on for long. It is already too late to send reinforcements now. We can only hope that Pavilion Lord Gu and the others of the North Sea Sword Pavilion are blessed by the heavens, being able to escape with their lives." The opponent this time seems to far surpass those of the past. Amidst their conversation, the sky to the northeast of the Spirit Inheritance region was obscured by a blurry layer of watery light, obscuring the heavens and covering the earth as it swept over. To be continued. Chapter 864. Faint, watery light noiselessly surged from the horizon, then rapidly lunged towards the Spirit Inheritance region. In next to no time, the entire sky above the Spirit Inheritance region was enveloped by this hazy, watery glow. Wherever the light passed, the flow of time in this part of the world seemed to stop. Everything in the world lost its luster, all sounds disappeared, and all was silent. Above Broad Creed Mountain, numerous streaks of green light surged, instantly forming a massive formation that obscured the heavens and concealed the sun, enveloping the sky. It was precisely the Clear Chi Grand Formation. As the Clear Chi Grand Formation circulated, streams of clear chi extended into the distance, penetrating deep into space. One after another, jet-black balls of light and earthy yellow balls of light appeared in the sky. It was as if the sky was filled with countless stars. As these streaks of radiance lined up, the circulation of the Clear Chi Grand Formation became heavy, resembling the heavy earth that was indestructible. As the rippling light enveloped the Clear Chi Grand Formation, the circulation of the formation also began to slow down. But it could still be sustained. The Clear Chi rose unceasingly, merging as one with the true sky, seemingly dragging the true sky downwards as it drew closer to Broad Creed Mountain. The countless black and yellow spheres of light descended together, resembling the great earth as it seemed to be lifting Broad Creed Mountain and the Spirit Inheritance region down below up somewhat. For a moment, the heavens and the earth seemed to be closing in on each other. Affected by this vast power, the hazy water seemed to ripple. An old voice came from the sky. "Oh, a sect that hails from the lower worlds and has only established itself in the world beyond worlds for a mere 3 to 5 years, actually has a grand formation that is more powerful than the North Sea Sword Pavilion's sword domain, which has been built up over 1,000 years. To be able to stir up such a storm, you are indeed not an incompetent person. Although there was some surprise in his words, his tone was still indifferent, as if it was an eternal moment. Sadly, the cultivation base of the one controlling the formation is too low. If you were an immortal bridge martial saint, you might be able to resist this old man for a moment. His tone was still indifferent, but in the ears of Yen Zhaoge and the others, the speed of his words had suddenly sped up greatly. What sped up along with the speed of the words was the passage of time in this world. Even if it was the sky and earth after experiencing endless years, they would still change, displaying the great changes of the world. Aging and decay was a process that all things in the world had to go through. Under the scouring of time, the clear qi grand formation instantly became unstable. Yuan Zhengfeng controlled the formation. Dust and stains began to appear on his clothes, while wrinkles and age spots appeared on his skin. It was as if he was aging and decaying along with the world. Yen Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone emitted a clear howl, directly leaving the great hall. A jet-black metal box appeared in front of him. The Northern Ocean clone patted the heaven-swallowing, earth-devouring box, the lid of the box opening as black light abruptly appeared. An ancient bronze sword shot out of the sword box, landing in the hands of the Northern Ocean clone as an extremely vicious, greedy, tyrannical aura instantly surged into the skies. Jet-black bloodlines surfaced on the surface of the Northern Ocean clone's body, looking savage and terrifying. Numerous jet-black bloodlines intersected, forming a profound sigil on the back of the Northern Ocean clone's sword-wielding right hand. The surface of the seal flickered, and the radiance condensed into a tao-tai. The sound of a tao-tai that resembled the cries of an infant resounded. The Northern Ocean clone waved his right hand, the jet-black sword light transforming into a black hole which hovered in the sky above Broad Creed Mountain. The black hole formed a terrifying suction force that devoured everything around it. Even space itself collapsed as numerous black crevices were ripped apart, collapsing inwards with the black hole as its center. That sword light that resembled water that enveloped the sky above Broad Creed Mountain was also sucked into the black hole in great amounts. While the sword light was still powerful, the pressure on Yuan Zhengfeng, who presided over the clear qi grand formation, immediately lessened. Yuan Zhengfeng's expression was calm and heavy. "Zhaoge, how is your true body in the vast ocean world?" The Northern Ocean clone answered concisely, "In death seclusion." Yuan Zhengfeng said, "Yen Di is also in death seclusion. There is still half a year before he emerges from seclusion." Yen Di had always been very accurate with regards to the time of his seclusion. If he said that he would emerge in a year, it would be a year. Barring any major accidents, he would definitely succeed. Still, it would most likely not be brought forward. Yuan Zhengfeng said, "If we let him leave seclusion now, at best he would give up halfway, all his previous efforts going to waste. At worst, he would suffer cultivation deviation and be heavily injured. The same goes for your true body. It would be best if we do not disturb you. We will strive to get through this." If they did not block it in time, the opponent's time-flowing sword would cause the lifespans of everyone in Broad Creed Mountain to accelerate, dying of old age. With Yen Zhaoge not on the mountain, Yen Di would still need half a year of seclusion before he could emerge from seclusion. The opponent's acceleration of time would not help Yen Di, because it would only accelerate the flow of time for his fleshly body. To Yen Di, who was comprehending principles, it would still only be an instant. If the situation was really critical at the final critical juncture of life and death, Yendi would only be able to break out of seclusion prematurely. However, the consequences of that would be hard to predict. Wasting all his previous efforts would be the lightest consequence. Even as the Northern Ocean clone gazed up into the sky, he said, "Grand Master, we can get through this." A voice resounded from within the sky. "Oh, how will you get through it?" A human face surfaced amidst the blurry sword light that resembled water. At this moment, it was as though the entire sky had transformed into this human face. While it was the face of a youth, the voice was incomparably ancient. In this old man's eyes, you are no different from Copperman Island and the North Sea Sword Pavilion. The sword light in the sky rippled for a moment, something suddenly appearing from within and descending. It was a human head, the head of the chief of Copperman Island, Gong Sun Wu. The gazes of Yen Zhaoge, Yuan Zhengfeng, and the others all narrowed into slits. At the same time, the figure of a person surfaced amidst the sword light. His eyes were tightly shut. He had no aura, as his fate was unknown. "Pavilion, Lord Gu Hong of the North Sea Sword Pavilion," the human face in the sky said mildly, giving Golden Court Mountain some face. "This old man will spare his life. As will you, Yen Zhaoge. Still, there is no need for anyone else to be spared. As for the two of you, while death can be spared, punishment will not be spared." As he said this, the sword light within the sky instantly changed once more. Up and down Broad Creed Mountain, it was as though it had been sliced into countless voids, with time flowing at different speeds in different locations, all of them different. The heavens and earth of the spirit inheritance region was actually transformed into chaotic flows of space by the other party at this moment. Space of varying speeds ripped apart, repelled, distorted, and intersected with one another. The resulting force virtually ripped the clear Qi Grand Formation apart, shattering the black hole formed of the evil sword Tao Tai. Seeing Gu Hong being captured alive by the other party, Yen Zhaoge could not help but frown. Killing someone and capturing them alive were two completely different things. Back when Lin Hanhua had been an 8th-level martial saint and possessed a high-grade sacred artifact, he had been absolutely confident of protecting Yen Zhaoge while slaying Kong Ping of the 7th level of the martial saint realm. Still, he dared not say that he had full confidence in capturing Yen Zhaoge alive. While there was no hope of Kong Ping escaping, there was still a chance for him to die. Now, this opponent before him had actually captured Gu Hong of the 7th level of the martial saint realm alive. While Gu Hong was indeed weaker than Kong Ping, he had the advantage of being on home ground in the grinding Hut region's sword domain. Yet, he had still been captured alive by his opponent in the end. The sword light in the sky pressured downwards unceasingly, causing numerous chaotic tides of space. The old voice was indifferent as ever. "All these years, Golden Court Mountain has been able to rest easy by keeping you alive. Yet, in the end, you have instead caused trouble. Since that is so, there is no need to keep you alive any longer. Clean them all up." Chapter 8, 65. The current situation caused Yen Zhaoge to recall back in the Eight Extremities world that year when his sect had tried to force the sacred Sun clans Huang Guanglia out of secluded cultivation prematurely. In order to ensure that Huang Guanglia would be able to achieve great success and sweep through all 8 levels of cultivation after emerging from seclusion, the Sacred Sun clan had indeed suffered quite a bit of losses, tolerating quite a bit. Sadly, while Huang Guanglia had successfully emerged from seclusion, his strength having improved a step further, he had still ended up badly injured at the foot of Broad Creed Mountain in the Eight Extremities world. Currently, Huang Guanglia and the Sacred Sun clan had long since become history. However, the past seemed to be repeating itself, just that this time it was Broad Creed Mountain who stood guard over the barrier. The human face in the sky looked at the Broad Creed Mountain and Yen Zhaoge's North Ocean clone indifferently. "Yen Zhaoge, if you are really the descendant of the exalted solar luminary, only this bigwig can save you. If you were not, your Broad Creed Mountain would have become the sect with the shortest history in the Royal Reed Sea today. At this moment, the Northern Ocean clone did not carry the avatar of the Kunping or the chi of a true dragon in the slightest. His entire person was enveloped by the Tao Ye's light shadow, as if he had transformed into a living Tao Tai. Although he was unable to unleash the full power of the high-grade sacred artifact, the evil sword Tao Tai, because his cultivation was not high enough, it was still extremely ferocious. Although they were both high-grade sacred weapons, the evil sword Tao Tai was in existence above the Xian King spear. However, the opponent in front of him was even more terrifying. While he was only a mid-immortal bridge martial saint, Yan Zhaoge felt that he would even be able to battle peak experts of the 9th level of the martial saint realm. Possessing outstanding talent and cultivating a peerless martial art like the Aeon Light heavenly scripture, Shun Lingzi's strength was definitely extraordinary. The higher one's cultivation level was, the fewer experts of the same level would be, and the smaller the gap between them. Experts who could reach this level were all heavenly talents who were invincible among their peers when they were young and in the environment they grew up in. They were able to defeat most opponents who were several levels higher than them. Having reached the immortal bridge martial saint realm, especially the 8th and 9th levels of the martial saint realm, it was already very rare for one to surpass levels in battle, as the possibility of such a thing was practically negligible. The difference of a single realm would result in a huge gap in average strength. Experts of this level were all top-notch existences in terms of talent, fortuitous encounters, and martial arts. But Shun Lingzi, at this level, was still a well-known figure. Just like Lin Hanhua and Kong Ping, Yan Zhaoge believed that if Lin Hanhua did not use his full strength in order to conceal the secret of his origins, he might not even be able to defeat this Shun Lingzi. What Yan Zhaoge was more concerned about was that the other party might still have other hidden methods. Otherwise, Gu Hong would not have been captured alive. This old man was now displaying the flowing time sword technique that Kong Ping and the others had yet to comprehend. With a single sword strike, time and space became chaotic, splitting into countless voids with different speeds of time, tearing and twisting each other. Not to mention opponents below the immortal bridge stage. Even most experts of the 7th level of the martial saint realm, the early immortal bridge stage, would only be defeated and perish before this sword. The Northern Ocean clone wielded the evil sword Tao Tai, while Yuan Zhengfeng presided over the Clear Qi Grand Formation. Even as they joined hands, facing this supreme blow, they still felt strained. It was no wonder that they had been able to breach Copper Men Island, which was equivalent to 3 experts of the 7th level of the martial saint realm. It was no wonder that it could break through the sword domain of the Grinding Hut region that the North Sea Sword Pavilion had accumulated for thousands of years. The Northern Ocean clone inhaled deeply. Grand Master, pass the control over the Grand Formation to me. With his main body in death seclusion, Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone's thoughts were not sharp enough. It would be best if he could avoid something as intricate as the control of the Grand Formation. Still, he had to make a move now. Yuan Zhengfeng did not waste time on words, as runes flickered within his pupils, radiance dissipating. Light flickered within the pupils of the Northern Ocean clone. The 2 spirit patterns circulated simultaneously, streams of clear chi from the Clear Qi Grand Formation bolstering the Northern Ocean clone's body. Wielded by the Northern Ocean clone, the entire Grand Formation instantly shook mightily. The sky formed of clear chi up above began descending at an accelerated rate, while the great earth condensed of countless specks of yellow and black light rose at an accelerated rate down below. Within the Grand Formation, a few spirit patterns began collapsing. Radiance shattered on the peaks of Broad Creed Mountain's 8 mountain peaks. Beneath Yan Zhaoge's violent control, the The treasures that had established the formation shockingly began to collapse. However, the grand formation circulated even more ferociously as it revealed a violent momentum. The heavens and the earth seemed about to heal. Pressured by this force, the chaotic space between the heavens and the earth vaguely showed signs of being stabilized once more. Bolstered by the power of the clear Qi Grand Formation, the Northern Ocean clone wielded the evil sword Tao Tai with greater might. The black hole reappeared, devouring the sword light of Shen Lingzi's time-flowing sword in great amounts. The human face within the sky vanished, the sword light that resembled water regaining its former calm. Now, the light of water parted to the sides. A figure walked out from within, his features exactly the same as the human face within the sky just now. A young face, an old demeanor. It was none other than Shen Lingzi, who had dominated the Royal Reed Sea in the past, and was even more powerful now. You have some skills. What a sword. He lowered his head to look at Broad Creed Mountain and the Northern Ocean clone, saying slowly, sadly, you don't even have a single immortal bridge, Martial Saint. What is the use of having a divine artifact? You are just throwing pearls before swine, wasting God's gifts. Shen Lingzi slowly raised his hand. This power is what a high-grade sacred artifact should possess. Accompanied by his raising his hand, a strange ancient seal appeared. That seal was long in shape, resembling a short sword, just that it had no tip or edge. An ancient, desolate aura emanated from the ancient seal in the form of a sword which seemed to have traversed countless ages, extending into the present. Grasping this sword seal, Shen Lingzi casually brandished it, the sword light that resembled water instantly enveloping the spirit inheritance region. All of Broad Creed Mountain resembled bugs that had been frozen in amber, unable to move. Beneath the circulation of the clear Qi Grand Formation, the heavens and earth that seemed about to close up immediately stilled. The black hole formed of the sword light of the evil sword Tao Tai began to suffuse and dissipate as well. Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered. He indeed has an accompanying high-grade sacred artifact. The Northern Ocean clone suddenly roared towards the heavens, streams of radiance appearing above his head which shot into the horizon, manifesting as numerous runes which came together to form a massive spirit formation. On Heaven Rising Peak, Yuan Zhengfeng had already emerged from the great hall, spiritual light also shooting into the heavens above his head which manifested as runes. A spirit formation was formed in the air above Yuan Zhengfeng's head as well. While it was different from the one above Yen Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone's head, they were closely connected. The Northern Ocean clone actually abandoned the evil sword Tao Tai in his hand now, throwing this powerful high-grade sacred artifact towards Broad Creed Mountain down below. At the same time, a spear appeared in his hands. It was another high-grade sacred artifact, precisely the King Xian spear. Blazing fire surged, surrounding the Northern Ocean clone. The silhouette of the Tao Tai dissipated, the influence of the Kunping appearing, the momentum of overturning seas and shooting into the heavens surging. The evil sword Tao Tai landed on fire-leaving peak of Broad Creed Mountain's 8 peaks. Their radiance condensed into runes as well, establishing a spirit formation. On the thunder-shocking peak, a 4th spirit formation was established. As the Northern Ocean clone raised a hand, numerous weapons that flickered with spiritual light and emanated unusual auras flew out. These weapons hovered within the air, forming a formation. Formation artifacts forged of grand spirit stone essence. The 4 great spirit formations in the air above Broad Creed Mountain rose in unison, expanding and combining as they transformed into an even more massive spirit formation. Tai Imperial Breaking Formation. To be continued. Chapter 866. The moment the formation was set up, Shen Lingzi's gaze instantly turned serious. This is the Tai Imperial Breaking Array. Shen Lingzi who cultivated the aeon-light heavenly scripture, recognized this powerful battle formation almost immediately. Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone stood silently amid space, pointing the King Xian spear in his hand towards Shen Lingzi. You know your stuff. Clearly knowing that he would likely have to enter death's seclusion after going to the vast ocean world this time, not being able to return even after a few years, how could Yan Zhaoga not have made arrangements? At this moment, atop Broad Creed Mountain's thunder-shocking peak, Feng Yunsheng wielded a black saber. Black flames wreathed her entire body, a dim blue color appearing within her pupils, resembling two dim suns. With the support of the cold sun divine saber, Feng Yunsheng's aura surged, and she actually seemed even more ferocious than the Tao Tai. On her head, there was a pure white crown. It was like a bright moon hanging high in the sky, emitting a cold and clear radiance. It was incomparably noble, a cold and noble aura, as well as a vicious and ruthless aura, interweaved on Feng Yunsheng's body at the same time, and they were both extremely powerful. Feng Yunsheng was the most suitable person to guard Yan Zhaoga as he headed to the vast ocean world. While she was still an Essence Talisman Martial Grandmaster now, she possessed the Extreme Yin Crown and the Cold Sun Divine Saber, possessing shocking strength. Coincidentally, these two divine weapons had the rare ability to adjust and control their own power, allowing them to descend to the lower realm without any restrictions. Still, Yan Zhaoga insisted that Feng Yunsheng remain in the world beyond worlds. It wasn't that he didn't want Feng Yunsheng to go with him. Instead, it was better for Feng Yunsheng to remain in the world beyond worlds. Feng Yunsheng wanted to cultivate as well. The environment of the world beyond worlds far surpassed that of the vast ocean world. If she went down to stand guard over Yan Zhaoga, it would be equivalent to slowing down her own cultivation. Staying in the world beyond worlds, if the Grand Xian dynasty made a move, she would be able to act. It was not just Feng Yunsheng. Yan Zhaoga had intentionally left the evil sword Tao Tai behind as well, not actually leaving it for his Northern Ocean clone. On the other side of the fire-leaving peak, a giant beast with black and white fur was roaring at the sky. On its forehead, streams of black light interweaved and manifested into the shadow of a Tao Tai, fusing with its huge body. He opened his mouth wide, and a terrifying devouring power came out from it. The evil sword Tao Tai returned to the heaven-swallowing, earth-devouring box, its aura not diminished in the slightest. At this moment, it landed on the forehead of this huge beast, the power of both sides faintly merging. It had always been seen that humans could use holy weapons. How many demonic beasts could use holy weapons if they did not transform into human form? However, Pan Pan was clearly resonating with the evil sword Tao Tai. It had devoured the Taotia's heart blood and forged the evil sword Tao Tai with the Taotia's remnant soul. At this moment, it seemed to have fused into one, and its power continued to rise. As a pure-blooded mountain Pishio, Pan Pan was innately capable of controlling white fire and black water. As it grew stronger, its comprehension of the principles of heaven and earth also deepened. This lazy fellow who usually only knew how to act cute had actually mastered the yin-yang transformation Tao without a teacher due to his gifted bloodline. The Tao of yin and yang that Pan Pan was proficient in was somewhat different from the Taiji yin-yang palm and the yin-yang finger. While it was unable to play a decisive role, it would still be of some help to Yan Zhaoga in the process of deriving the Taiji yin-yang palm. At the same time, after devouring the Taotia's heart and the Taotia's heart and assimilating countless rare treasures, Pan Pan's strength could virtually contend against many seeing divinity martial saints. As Yan Zhaoga's steed, he was a natural protector. In fact, the mounts of many almighty powerhouses played a similar role in their daily cultivation, guarding and watching over their homes. This time, however, not only had Yan Zhaoga not brought anyone else to guard him, he had actually left Pan Pan behind as well. He had come precisely for this moment. It was so that he could free his father, Yen Di, to cultivate and roam when he should. Even if both father and son were not present, Broad Creed Mountain would still possess sufficient strength. If a powerful enemy attacked, Yen Zhaoga and Yen Di would still be able to peacefully enter secluded cultivation, not being forced out of seclusion prematurely. At this moment, Yuan Zhengfeng, who had regained control over the Clear Qi Grand Formation, the Northern Ocean clone, who wielded the King Xian spear, Pan Pan, who had merged with the evil sword Tao Tai, Feng Yunsheng, who wielded the Extreme Yin crown, and the Cold Sun Divine saber. The four experts stood in four different directions, establishing the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation together. In the Eight Extremities world that year, Yen Di of the first level of the Martial Saint Realm, Huang Guanglia, and Old Man Mo of the second level of the Martial Saint Realm, and Song Wuliang of the first level of the Martial Saint Realm, who wielded the low-grade sacred artifact, the Jade Sea Pill Heart Sword, had stood in formation. Even as they had repelled the Flame Devil experts, they had also suppressed the encroachment of the Flame Devil world into the Eight Extremities world. Now, as Yuan Zhengfeng and the other three stood in formation, white spiritual light shooting into the skies, resisting that sword light that resembled the flowing water of time. Innumerable profound runes hovered amidst the dense white heavens and earth, inscribed within the air. The Tai Imperial Breaking Formation penetrated the variations of movement and stillness as it manifested infinite profundities. The extremities of movement and stillness combined, similarly analyzing the true intent of the flow of time. The power of the formation surged, the white light resisting the sword light up above. Broad Creed Mountain, which had originally seemed to have fallen silent, time frozen, instantly regaining its vitality. This formation has already attained a deep understanding of its profundities. Wielding the high-grade sacred artifact, the Light Yin Sword Seal, a solemn look appeared within Shun Lingzi's gaze for the first time. It actually knows the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation. Even the Emperor only has a fragmented formation diagram. His sword intent was still vast and majestic, but it was blocked by the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation down below, as it was hard for it to be of any use. Yen Zhaoga and the others did not seek to counterattack. Even if they did, bolstered by the power of the Grand Formation, they might still not be able to harm Shun Lingzi, who possessed a supreme cultivation base and a high-grade sacred artifact. Broad Creed Mountain only had to stably defend their formation, such that Shun Lingzi was unable to do anything to them. Their two strongest experts from the rumors, that father and son pair, have yet to appear. Shun Lingzi frowned. Let's end this battle quickly, lest there be any complications. He suddenly raised a hand, a streak of light flying into the air. The radiance expanded, transforming into specks of light. Enveloped by the specks of light, the space and time of the spirit inheritance region seemed to reverse. Originally, the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation had already been established, white light shooting into the skies. The next moment, however, the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation shockingly vanished. It was not that the formation had been broken. On Fire-Leaving Peak, Pan Pan roared towards the heavens. On Shocking Thunder Peak, Feng Yunsheng stood with a saber. On Heaven Rising Peak, Yuan Zhengfeng awaited solemnly. Within the sky, Yen Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone was just about to take out a formation artifact forged of Grand Spirit Stone essence. This was clearly something that had already happened earlier. Shun Lingzi had not broken the formation. Instead, time actually flowed in reverse between the heavens and the earth, where the specks of light enveloped. Shun Lingzi exhaled, approaching the Northern Ocean clone at lightning speed as he hacked towards those formation artifacts forged of Grand Spirit Stone essence. This miraculous treasure had given him a chance to redo things and make up for his mistake. Fortunately, this treasure only affected the heavens and earth of the outside world, not affecting the senses and memories of Yan Zhaoge and the others. Everyone immediately realized that something was wrong. Feng Yunxing's gaze was resolute. She virtually immediately spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, landing on the cold sun divine saber. The black saber instantly transformed into all-encompassing black fire. The terrifying, dim, glorious devilish qi enveloped Feng Yunxing's entire body, forming an existence that resembled armor in an instant, yet burning unceasingly. Feng Yunxing's aura surged madly once more. Meanwhile, the extreme yin crown above her head erupted with light, displaying unprecedented radiance. Just an instant. However, at this instant, the power of the extreme yin crown skyrocketed, directly suppressing Shen Lingzi's light yin sword seal. With this delay, Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone was already able to move, protecting the formation artifact before continuing to expand. The next moment, the power of the extreme yin crown receded, the black fire armor on Feng Yunxing's body vanishing as her face paled somewhat. However, the Tai Imperial breaking formation was established once more. Amidst the all-encompassing white light, Shen Lingzi was forced into retreat once more, unable to advance any further. To be continued. Chapter 867. The Northern Ocean clone gazed at Shen Lingzi. That treasure just now. No wonder it could capture Gu Hong of the 7th level of the Martial Saint realm alive. Although it was only for an instant, it was a true reversal of time. It was a forceful reversal of time, erasing everything that had already happened, making everything start from the beginning. If not for the fact that Broad Creed Mountain still had a trump card, which Feng Yunxing had not hesitated in the slightest and had immediately made a move, the result of this battle might very well have been rewritten. If the soldiers used to set up the formation were destroyed, they would not be able to set up the Tai Imperial breaking formation. Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone, Yuan Zhengfeng, and the others would be hard-pressed to resist the power of Shen Lingzi and the light yin sword seal. In that case, Yan Zhaoge and Yan Di would only be able to leave seclusion prematurely, unleashing the power of the entire Broad Creed Mountain in a bloody battle with their opponents. At that time, even if he managed to force his opponent to retreat, in a sense, he would still have lost, because that would be equivalent to the opponent having won sufficient time, while Broad Creed Mountain would have wasted all their previous hard work for nothing. When the opponent was fully prepared and gathered an even stronger force to attack, the consequences would be unimaginable. And now, the Tai Imperial breaking formation had transformed into a world of white light that enveloped the spirit inheritance region, forcefully keeping Shen Lingzi out. Shen Lingzi's expression was still calm, but his gaze became somewhat grave. Gazing at the Tai Imperial breaking formation before him that enveloped Broad Creed Mountain, he thought, no wonder Kong Ping and the others were able to be left in such a sorry state. There are truly no end of unexpected variables. He had only brought 2 reversal light divine stones with him this time. He had originally thought that he would only need to expend one to capture Gu Hong alive at most, breaking through Broad Creed Mountain's defenses, and capturing Yan Zhaoge would not be difficult at all. He had prepared an additional reversal light divine stone, just in case. Who would have thought that even after using the reversal light divine stone, he would still face a wall at the foot of Broad Creed Mountain? Shen Lingzi raised his head and gazed towards the western skies. This place is too close to Shadowlin and the rest. Time is limited. King Xuanqing was still busy with the matter of the heaven-bearing Effecate formation in the capital and could not free himself for the time being. Seeing that he would not be able to break the Tai Imperial breaking formation within a short period of time, Shen Lingzi did not drag his feet, nor did he want to forcefully fight to the death in a fit of rage. He immediately retracted the light sword seal and his sword light. Broad Creed Mountain, Taoism's East Peak, they're still far from being worthy of this title. However, although their cultivation bases aren't high, they have quite a lot of treasures. This old man was a bit hasty in coming here. Shenlingzi glanced calmly at Broad Creed Mountain before turning and leaving. Since that is so, let us end things here for today. I had originally wanted to settle things with just one round, but from the looks of it now, I can only leave you all for last. His figure disappeared in the void, and the sword that was like water covered the sky, flowing quietly and leaving toward the southeast. Those of Broad Creed Mountain watched Shenlingzi's departing figure, frowning in silence. The light of the Tai Imperial breaking formation had yet to disperse. Who knew if Shenlingzi would suddenly turn around and attack? Yan Zhaoga had never been stingy in judging his enemies with the greatest evil intentions. The other party cultivated a martial art like the Time Stream sword, and his speed was incredibly fast. If he wanted to launch a sneak attack, he would arrive in an instant. Still, looking in the direction in which Shenlingzi had departed, the Northern Ocean clone muttered, heading for the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea, the dim darkness sect's newly established headquarters. Ha! I really have to circle the Royal Reed Sea in an anti-clockwise direction, Yuan Zhengfeng said in a heavy tone. The dim darkness sect will not be able to withstand it. Yan Zhaoga answered. They should have known this after receiving the news that Copper Men Island had been breached. It is just a pity that they did not come to rendezvous with us. While Zhou Haoxing and the others did not know what exactly Yan Zhaoga had gained in the Battle of the Dim Radiant Mausoleum, seeing that the Radiant Light sect seemed to have suffered a great loss as well, they guessed that the one who had benefited was most likely Yan Zhaoga. In the Dim Darkness sect's guess, the dim radiant lamp had ultimately fallen into Yan Zhaoga's hands. Comparing this to how they had been virtually destroyed by the star-plucking practitioner Guan Lide, suffering a great blow to their vitality, the dim darkness sect inevitably felt extremely complicated as they looked at Yan Zhaoga. While the enemy of an enemy was a friend, the two sides were natural allies due to the Grand Xian dynasty and the Radiant Light sect. However, the dim darkness sect had always felt rather awkward and averse towards Yan Zhaoga and Broad Creed Mountain these past few years. When the news of Copper Men Island's demise had spread, other than contacting the North Sea Sword Pavilion, Broad Creed Mountain had also contacted the dim darkness sect. It was just a pity that Shenlingzi had been too fast, his actions too decisive. Breaching the North Sea Sword Pavilion had been as swift as a thunderstorm. Determining that they would not be able to breach Broad Creed Mountain's defenses within a short period of time, they had immediately left without further ado. Even if the dim darkness sect set aside their reservations and agreed to Broad Creed Mountain's suggestion, hurrying over to the Spirit Inheritance region to join forces, they would only be directly obstructed by Shenlingzi now. If they had not accepted Broad Creed Mountain's suggestion and fled to the southern region of the Royal Reed Sea, they might instead have been able to avoid this tribulation. The light of the Tai Imperial breaking formation dissipated, the Northern Ocean clone landing back on the heaven-rising peak. He first looked at Feng Yunsheng. How is the situation? Feng Yunsheng had already kept the extreme Yin crown and the cold Sun Divine saber now. Her face pale, as not the slightest hint of blood could be seen on it. It's not a big problem for now. I just need to recuperate for a period of time. The Northern Ocean clone shook his head. Unless there is no other choice, I would not want you to use this move. Sadly, the opponent just now indeed had some skills. Pan Pan had already shrunk back to the size of a panda at this moment, the viciousness on his face vanishing as his gaze turned gentle once more. It was just that he too had a fatigued look on his face as he carried the heaven-swallowing, earth-devouring box over to Feng Yunsheng's side, lying down and dozing off. Yuan Zhongfeng and Fang Zhuan walked over. That direction Shen Lingzi left in. Now we can only hope that the dim darkness sect is blessed by the heavens. The Northern Ocean clone shook his head. We can defend a place. If we pursue, while the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation can move, it would be impossible for it to catch up to Shen Lingzi's speed. It was clearly impossible to hope that the dim darkness sect would be able to hold on for a little longer, delaying and obstructing Shen Lingzi for Yan Zhaoga and the others to catch up. Having personally clashed with Shen Lingzi, Yan Zhaoga could be certain that if the dim darkness sect were to directly face Shen Lingzi, they would be defeated in a short while. Even if Zhou Haoxing was armed to the teeth with a few high-grade sacred artifacts, it would still be useless. Yuan Zhongfeng sighed. Pay close attention to the movements over there. Now, we can only hope that you and Yan Di can emerge from seclusion as soon as possible. The Northern Ocean clone nodded silently. Fang Zhuan now said, "The other side has already decided to kill them all this time, thundering through their territory. King Xuanqing, however, has yet to make a move. Perhaps he is still worrying about that heaven-bearing effecate formation. From the looks of it now, it was fortunate that you, Zhaoga, did not just trap Kong Ping's trio in the underwater palace of the clear scenic region, also slay that Qi Wei who is proficient in formations," he said slowly. "Otherwise, this wave of attacks from the other side would probably be two experts of the 8th level of the Martial Saint realm moving together." The Northern Ocean clone's gaze was heavy. "The Earth-Ocean lung crystals and other treasures that I plundered that year should have been collected by the Grand Xian dynasty again these past few years. King Xuanqing and the others might even have brought back sufficient treasures to set up the heaven-bearing effecate formation from outside the Royal Reed Sea. It is always the most difficult to set up the formation at the start, requiring peak experts who are proficient in formations to keep an eye on it at all times. Still, when the formation is on the right track and circulates stably, King Xuanqing will be able to extricate himself." The Northern Ocean clone gazed into the distance. It has already been a few years since King Xuanqing arrived here. That day is probably already not far away. A hint of a cold smile appeared at the corners of his lips. "It's just that, by the time they finish preparing, we should be more or less done as well. Shen Lingzi might not have realized that today is his best chance, and also his last chance." To be continued. Chapter 868. Shen Lingzi came quickly, and left quickly as well. As the light of water in the sky dissipated, Broad Creed Mountain instantly saw the light of day once more. However, the chaotic spiritual qi in the air indicated that an earth-shattering battle had just taken place here. While Broad Creed Mountain was completely safe, the situation in the Royal Reed Sea had already undergone a heaven-shaking, earth-overturning change once more. After the dim darkness sect had fallen and the headquarters of the Radiant Light sect had fallen, the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Copper Men Island had been destroyed along with the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Copper Men Island. As compared to the dim darkness sect, who was struggling at death's door, and the Radiant Light sect, whose future was currently uncertain in the clear scenic region, the North Sea Sword Pavilion and Copper Men Island were undoubtedly in an even more tragic state. Copper Men Island, which had possessed the #1 defensive location in the Royal Reed Sea in the past and had never been breached for thousands of years, had been directly exterminated. The only immortal bridge Martial Saint in the anti-Xian camp, the North Sea Sword Pavilion, was heading towards its end as well. Within Broad Creed Mountain, Yu Baoqi, who had originally come here to visit Sikong Qing as a guest for a few days, having avoided a great tribulation, was currently feeling extremely heavy. Although she had survived, her entire sect had been destroyed. Compared to rejoicing, Yu Baoqi felt more sorrow in her heart. Not only was Shen Lingzi powerful, he had also utilized his advantage in speed to the maximum, such that the anti-Shin coalition in the Royal Reed Sea had been hard-pressed to reinforce each other as they were finally defeated one by one. While he had met with a wall at Broad Creed Mountain, Shun Lingzi still swept through the Royal Reed Sea with a terrifying momentum. On Broad Creed Mountain, Yuan Zhengfeng and the others dealt with the aftermath of the battle, whilst also actively seeking news from the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea. The final result was within his expectations, but it was also unexpected. Facing a peak expert who was virtually not inferior to the star-plucking practitioner Guan Lied in the slightest, the Dim Darkness sect decisively cowered. After receiving the news that Copperman Island had been breached, the Dim Darkness sect had made a prompt decision to abandon their new headquarters, which had just been established a few years ago, and which had regained some of its former glory. With a great enemy before them, Zhou Haoxing and the others could not be bothered with some awkwardness as they prepared to first join up with Broad Creed Mountain and the North Sea Sword Pavilion. Unfortunately, as soon as they moved, they received news that the North Sea Sword Pavilion had also been breached. Zhou Haoxing and the others immediately blacked out. As compared to the area where the Dim Darkness sect was active, Broad Creed Mountain was closer to the North Sea Sword Pavilion. Clearly, Broad Creed Mountain would be Shun Lingzi's next target, while Lin Hanhua and the other experts of Golden Court Mountain were stationed at the westernmost side of the Royal Reed Sea, facing off against the experts of the southern blazing Heaven territory. However, if he wanted to head there, he would undoubtedly be blocked by Shun Lingzi. Those of the Dim Darkness sect could only halt, returning to the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea. The disciples with low and middle cultivation bases spread out and hid themselves. Zhou Haoxing and the other higher echelon experts of the Dim Darkness sect simply intended to temporarily leave the Royal Reed Sea to seek refuge. Sadly, as the last major anti-Xian power that Shun Lingzi had visited, the Grand Xian dynasty would not give the Dim Darkness sect the chance to retreat so leisurely. It was precisely in order to prevent the Dim Darkness sect from directly escaping while Shun Lingzi was sweeping through the other three clans that the Grand Xian dynasty had dispatched two Lord Protectors, both of them experts of the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm. Leading numerous martial practitioners of the Grand Xian dynasty, they had arrived at the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea ahead of time to surround and suppress the Dim Darkness sect. This time, the Grand Xian dynasty was truly determined to exterminate them all, completely purging their enemies of the Royal Reed Sea. No survivors, no captives. They would not even give their enemies a chance to flee. Entangled by the Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners, Zhou Haoxing and the others retreated as they fought, unable to extricate themselves. Soon, the end of the world descended. After leaving Broad Creed Mountain, Shun Lingzi quickly arrived at the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea. Still, Shun Lingzi had not gone all out at the end of the day. Making use of the attention of Lin Hanhua, and the others being drawn by the southern blazing Heaven territory, he launched a sneak attack, swiftly sweeping through the Royal Reed Sea in a lightning-fast manner. Yan Zhaoge was on good terms with Golden Court Mountain. Gu Hong had helped Golden Court Mountain in capturing martial practitioners of the southern blazing Heaven territory, and Lin Hanhua's previous residence in the Royal Reed Sea had been a branch altar of the Dim Darkness sect. If it was just Copperman Island alone, it would be fine. With the other three clans facing the threat of extermination, Golden Court Mountain would very likely intervene. As opposed to avoiding the alliance of the anti-Xian powers, Shun Lingzi's sudden attack this time was actually more for ending the battle before Lin Hanhua and the others intervened. However, Lin Hanhua had been decisive beyond his expectations, as he had quickly set off after receiving the news. While he had not been able to make it in time for the battle at Broad Creed Mountain, after confirming that Broad Creed Mountain was safe, he had pursued them all the way to the southern sea. The two peak experts engaged in a brief yet intense battle in the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea. In the end, neither of them had been able to do anything to the other. Facing Shun Lingzi's attack, Lin Hanhua had forcibly preserved the life of the chief of the Dim Darkness sect, Zhou Haoxing. However, in the course of the battle, the shockwaves had affected the North Sea Sword Pavilion's pavilion master, Gu Hong, who had lost the ability to protect himself after being captured, causing him to be heavily injured and on the verge of death. The two great sword cultivators confronted each other. In the end, Lin Hanhua retreated and returned to the Western Sea. Because of his temporary departure, the southern Blazing Heaven territory had become restless and was already closing in on the borders of the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Shun Lingzi and the others did not continue to pester him. However, following the North Sea and the East Sea, the southern regions of the Royal Reed Sea had all returned to the Grand Xian dynasty's control as well. Yuan Zhengfeng said, "I'm afraid that Golden Court Mountain really will not be able to care about the internal affairs of the Royal Reed Sea after this." The battle between the southern Blazing Heaven territory and the southeastern Yang Heaven territory had already reached the point where it could erupt at any moment as a war that was even greater than the internal conflict of the Royal Reed Sea might erupt at any moment. Fang Zhuan looked at Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. "There is a very important problem now. That wound of the sky in the phoenix-bearing region of the Royal Reed Sea that leads to the vast ocean world has already fallen under the control of the Grand Xian dynasty." The Northern Ocean clone answered, "Send all our martial practitioners in the vast ocean world back to the Eight Extremities world. As for me, there is no need to worry. Besides the few of us, no one knows where my true body is, including those of the vast ocean world. Even if the people of the vast ocean world tell them that I first appeared in the region of the bewildering maze sea, they would still not be able to find me. If the other party wanted to descend, they would have to suppress their cultivation bases to below the 4th level of the Martial Saint realm." The Northern Ocean clone said, "Not knowing the specific location beforehand, it would be very difficult for martial practitioners of the 3rd level of the Martial Saint realm to find me in the environment of the bewildering maze sea. I had considered this in mind when I chose that place to enter secluded cultivation back then. Secrecy is the greatest form of protection." As Yan Zhaoga, Fang Zhuan, and the others had predicted, the Grand Xian dynasty had indeed descended into the vast ocean world from the wound of the sky in the phoenix-bearing region. Having long since been prepared for this, Broad Creed Mountain did not suffer any losses. Instead, it was Chongli Mountain who suffered a bit as they were forced to abandon their headquarters, their disciples scattering and hiding in regions of sea like the star-shifting sea and the bewildering maze sea to seek refuge. Other powers of the vast ocean world made use of this to make things difficult for them, causing Chongli Mountain to suffer greatly. It was only after half a year had passed in the world beyond worlds that Yen de-emerged from seclusion, and Broad Creed Mountain no longer had to gather manpower for the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation as Yuan Zhengfeng and Feng Yunxing successively headed to the vast ocean world, that Chongli Mountain could finally hold its head up high. And as time passed, the day when Kong Ping and the others would be freed from the clear scenic region was already right before their eyes. They might be able to see the light of day any day now. One day, a figure suddenly descended from the sky in the capital of the Grand Xian dynasty. In the city, when Shun Lingzi saw the newcomer, a faint smile appeared on his face. "Junior apprentice Brother Shi, welcome back from the extraterritorial void." Chapter 869. Within the capital of the Grand Xian dynasty, apart from Shun Lingzi, there was also a middle-aged man who wore a dragon robe and a flat, heavenly crown on his head, bearing an authoritative air. It was none other than King Xuanqing, who had left the Royal Reed Sea after passing the throne to his son King Xuanmu, having returned a few years ago to rule the Grand Xian dynasty once more. He was a half-step behind Shun Lingzi, similarly raising his head towards the sky, and bowing, "Senior Apprentice Uncle Shi." A white-haired, stooped old man descended from the sky. Looking at King Xuanqing, the white-haired old man nodded slightly. Then his gaze turned to Shenlingzi. Is it really the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation? Shenlingzi nodded. It can't be wrong. This old man has also seen the incomplete formation diagram that the emperor kept before. The white-haired old man shook his head repeatedly. I originally thought that everything here was already on the right track, and that we would be able to leave to handle other errands for the emperor. Who would have thought that the juniors would be so disappointing, requiring us to return to clean up the mess? It is a small matter for us old men to rush about, but we are afraid of delaying the errands that the emperor has ordered. King Xuanqing said in a heavy tone from the side, there is still a chance to make up for it. With senior apprentice Uncle Shi handling the heaven-bearing Effecate formation, we can join hands with senior apprentice Uncle Shenlingzi and get rid of those troublemakers. This white-haired old man was precisely Daoist Shi who had entered the Royal Reed Sea alongside King Xianwen and Shenlingzi that year. While he was currently still an early immortal bridge marshal saint, he had already been a formation grandmaster whose name shook the entire Royal Reed Sea more than a century ago. The white-haired old man said, this old man would like to personally experience that broad Creed Mountains Tai Imperial Breaking Formation. If I can complete the incomplete formation diagram of this peak battle formation for the Emperor, it can also be considered making up for the mistakes of the juniors here. Shenlingzi said, the heaven-bearing Effecate formation has already basically stabilized over the past few years, returning to the right track. Junior apprentice brother Shi, make some more arrangements. I believe that there will no longer be a need for immortal bridge martial saints to watch over this place. The three of us will head to that broad Creed Mountain together. Beneath Shenlingzi's youthful appearance, an ancient voice resounded. That way, even if Shadow Mountain Lin intervenes, we will still have full confidence in breaking that broad Creed Mountain. Daoist Shi nodded. Yes, this old man will go take a look at the Heaven Effecate Array and the Great Array of the Imperial City. King Xuanqing said, the black hole at the bottom of the clear scenic region is already extremely unstable. Junior apprentice brothers Gu Zhang and He Dongcheng, as well as apprentice nephew Kong Ping, could escape from there at any time. Shenlingzi raised a hand, quietly looking at the reversal light divine stone that was flickering with a lustrous luster in the center of his palm. We need to get rid of the pests that are causing trouble, set things right as soon as possible, and get everything back on track. As time passed, the great battle between the southeastern Yang Heaven Territory and the southern Blazing Heaven Territory finally officially erupted. Situated in the west of the Royal Reed Sea, close to the battlefield, Broad Creed Mountain was paying close attention to the movements of the Grand Xian dynasty, even as it was paying close attention to the situation in the west. In recent years, the attitude of the southern Blazing Heaven Territory has been growing more and more unyielding. Fang Zhuan frowned as he said, it is very likely that they have obtained powerful reinforcements. Yuan Zhengfeng said slowly, it is most likely that major figure behind the Grand Xian dynasty. Opposite Yuan Zhengfeng sat a handsome man who appeared to be in his 30s or 40s from the outside, his sideburns slightly gray. It was precisely Yan Di, who had already left seclusion. Yan Di said, the southeastern exalt has powerful reinforcements as well. The higher echelons of both sides are still unceasingly restraining each other. The great battle that has erupted down below is more of a probe, probing the strength and foundation of the other side. Now, the crux of the matter is still up to us. He swiveled his head to look at Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. Zhaoga, how are you doing? The Northern Ocean clone smiled, pointing upwards with his right index finger. I am already coming up. Hearing Yan Zhaoga say, coming up, those of Broad Creed Mountain immediately understood what he meant as their spirits rose. At this moment, in the southern Phoenix-bearing region of the Royal Reed Sea. The heavens and the earth shook unceasingly as a glowing crevice slowly opened amid space. The wound of the sky was ripped apart, the power of dimensions pressuring and overlapping unceasingly as a shocking force was emitted. The Grand Xian Dynasty martial practitioners who were stationed nearby were all shocked. That was the sign of someone surpassing the third level of the martial saint realm in the vast ocean world, that the wound of the sky led to wanting to ascend to this world beyond worlds. In the bewildering maze sea of the vast ocean world, a glorious pillar of light shot straight into the horizon. With the bewildering maze sea as its center, numerous ripples condensed to the point of being tangible expanded unceasingly throughout the entire vast ocean world. Where the ripples passed, they swept through the surrounding area. Sea water surged to the heavens as the seabed could be seen. The winds and clouds in the sky broke apart, the sun and moon changing color. The great earth collapsed and quaked, mountain peaks collapsing. The vast ocean world martial practitioners all gazed fearfully in the direction of the bewildering maze sea. They found it hard to understand what had caused such terrifying changes that resembled the end of the world. In the impression of the vast ocean world martial practitioners, this was simply like the repeated heavenly tribulations of the heavens and the earth that had been recorded in the ancient texts. Now, everyone already knew that it had been caused by the dragon tomb. However, the dragon tomb had long since ceased to exist. Why would there still be such changes? Suddenly, in the bewildering maze sea, a pillar of light shot into the heavens as a figure surfaced from within, rising up into the sky. At this moment, in the entire vast ocean world, everywhere beneath the heavens, everyone in every corner of the world could see that pillar of light, that figure. Traceless Cloud Dragon King. Traceless Cloud Yin. It's him. He's in the vast ocean world. Everyone in the vast ocean world came to a sudden realization. Due to the descent of the Grand Xian Dynasty martial practitioners, those who already knew of the existence of the world beyond worlds all felt rather upset. The first person of their vast ocean world to ascend to the world beyond worlds was an outsider. Still, after a short period of silence, more and more people still bowed solemnly towards that figure who had risen into the sky. Congratulations on the Traceless Cloud Dragon King's ascension. Congratulations on the Traceless Cloud Dragon King. Congratulations. More and more cheers resounded throughout the vast ocean world, gradually converging to form the sound of the heavens and the earth. The figure within the pillar of light gradually vanished. That pillar of light that originated from the bewildering maze sea instantly thickened and expanded, enveloping the entire vast ocean world as all was white before everyone's eyes. Meanwhile, in the world beyond worlds, the wound of the sky in the Royal Reed Sea's Phoenix-bearing region was ripped apart once more, the crack expanding unceasingly. The majestic pillar of light shot out, piercing straight into the horizon of the world beyond worlds, as well, illuminating the surrounding area. Everyone in the vicinity was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied as they began to doubt their earlier judgment. How could there be such a major disturbance in the ascension of a fourth-level martial saint from the lower worlds? Could something else have happened? Far to the west of the Phoenix-bearing region, the rampaging, endless magnetic storms of the clear scenic region suddenly calmed. The surface of the vast sea down below suddenly collapsed. A massive whirlpool appeared in the center of the great sea as seawater surged downwards unceasingly. At the bottom of the sea, a seemingly still black hole distorted intensely before finally dissipating into nothingness. Amidst the chaos of space, several figures were flung helplessly into the surroundings. To be continued. Chapter 870. At the bottom of the Royal Reed Sea's clear scenic region, the collapse of the black hole had caused space and time at the bottom of the sea to be thrown into disorder. The people who had been trapped in the black whole were thrown in different directions. Other than Kang Ping and the other experts of the Grand Xian dynasty, there was also the Radiant Light sect's Luo Ziyuan and some other Radiant Light sect martial practitioners who had escaped as well. Luo Ziyuan, who was originally being chased by Kang Ping and the others, immediately fled far away after understanding the situation in front of him. The black hole shattered, and Kang Ping and the others were thrown in different directions. It was difficult for them to catch up immediately, having barely managed to extricate themselves. Luo Ziyuan's group first found some small to mid-sized powers in the vicinity of the clear scenic region, understanding the current situation in the Royal Reed Sea. Hearing that Yan Zhaoga and Broad Creed Mountain had domineeringly slain King Xuanmu that year, occupying the Spirit Inheritance region, where the Radiant Light sect had once been located, Luo Ziyuan and the others could only feel stifled within their chests. Hearing that King Xuanqing and Shun Lingzi had both returned to the Royal Reed Sea, sweeping through the North Sea Sword Pavilion, Coppermen Island, and the Dim Darkness sect, while Broad Creed Mountain remained standing, those of the Radiant Light sect felt even more upset. Such a Broad Creed Mountain was already not something that the Radiant Light sect could stand against. In the past, that small sect of the Radiant Light sect that had looked down on them in the lower worlds had, in these short few years, already reached a height that they had to look up to. Meanwhile, not only had King Xuanqing and Shunlingzi not perished, they had also returned to the Royal Reed Sea. Kang Ping and the other two great immortal bridge martial saints had also broken free, the pressure brought about by this suffocating the Radiant Light sect. While he was very unwilling to admit it, Luo Ziyuan's rationality told him that even if Broad Creed Mountain and the Grand Xian dynasty, the two massive entities currently clashing within the Royal Reed Sea, were both heavily injured, it would still be very hard for his Radiant Light sect to take advantage of them. Looking at them, Luo Ziyuan said in a heavy tone after a long time, "We need to first leave the Royal Reed Sea. Whether the Grand Xian dynasty or Broad Creed Mountain won, it would clearly be hard for the Radiant Light sect to gain a foothold in the Royal Reed Sea." Everyone was silent. Then they sighed and nodded silently. But it won't end just like that. Luo Ziyuan's gaze suddenly sunk, incomparably cold, whether it is Broad Creed Mountain or the Grand Xian dynasty. Very quickly, the news spread throughout the entire Royal Reed Sea within the shortest possible period of time, even spreading to the southeastern Yang Heaven territory, and even other parts of the southern Blazing Heaven territory. It was not that the Radiant Light sect, which was struggling at death's door, had such a powerful information network. Instead, it was the news itself. It was shocking and explosive. In the past, the dim Radiant Emperor Yin Tianxia, who had once left behind a great legacy in the world beyond worlds, had left behind a supreme treasure, an immortal weapon. The world beyond worlds was unlike lower worlds like the Eight Extremities world, the vast ocean world, and the floating gate world. Here, low-grade sacred weapons and even mid-grade sacred weapons were legendary existences to ordinary people. However, to martial saints, they were not so rare and precious as long as they had the support of a powerful enough faction. Comparatively rarer and rarer were high-grade sacred artifacts. Due to the scarcity of the raw materials and the difficulty in forging them, immortal bridge martial saints would not be able to obtain one on average. What was even rarer than high-grade saint artifacts were immortal artifacts. To most martial practitioners of the world beyond worlds, they were legendary existences, let alone possessing them. Even those who had seen them before were few and far between. Now, the whereabouts of an immortal artifact had suddenly been revealed, so how could it not cause the crowd to be agitated and draw the attention of the entire world? According to the news released by the Radiant Light sect, this immortal artifact had previously been kept within the dim, radiant mausoleum. Besides the Radiant Light sect and the dim darkness sect, there had been another person who had entered the dim, radiant mausoleum back then. Broad Creed Mountain, Yen Zhaoge, given the current situation of the Radiant Light sect and the Dim Darkness sect. It was obvious who the immortal artifact had ended up in. The Radiant Light sect had previously concealed the news of the dim radiant wheel, as they had always harbored the desire to wrest that supreme treasure from Yen Zhaoge's hands. They naturally did not wish for others to learn of it, lest even more powerful experts come to fight over it. Anyway, with Yen Zhaoge's previous cultivation base, he had not been able to wield the dim radiant wheel. However, things were different now. While he felt stifled to the point of dripping blood, Luo Ziyuan had to admit that he would not be able to wrest the dim radiant wheel from Yen Zhaoge's hands. Even if Yen Zhaoge was defeated and killed by the Grand Xian dynasty, the dim radiant wheel would also fall into their hands, with the Radiant Light sect still having no chance at all. Since that was so, they might as well just go their separate ways. After spreading the news, Luo Ziyuan and the others speedily left the territory of the Royal Reed Sea. Since they had already decided to leave, those of the Radiant Light sect no longer hesitated. Sadly, they were still unable to leave in the end. It was just that the ones who had captured them were neither Broad Creed Mountain nor the Grand Xian dynasty. Luo Ziyuan and the others inhaled a breath of cold air as they looked at that massive hand which had broken through the boundaries of the heavens and the earth and extended from amid space. That palm was so massive that it seemed like it could easily grasp even the stars in the sky. The palm was transparent, with countless tiny specks of light flickering and moving unceasingly within, resembling the starry sky up in the sky. Seeing this hand, those of the Radiant Light sect all knew who it was. It was one of the peak experts of the southeastern Yang Heaven territory beneath the southeastern Exalt Chao Jia, the late immortal bridge marshal saint, the star-plucking practitioner Guan Lide. Faced with such an expert, Luo Ziyuan and the others would have no way out. Even if they wanted to commit suicide, they might not be able to succeed. The massive hand blocked the path of those of the Radiant Light sect. Luo Ziyuan and the others did not resist as they obediently halted. Seeing this, the other party did not go overboard as he retracted his palm. The next moment, a thin middle-aged scholar appeared before Luo Ziyuan and the others, asking mildly, "The immortal artifact left behind by the dim radiant emperor is with that Broad Creed Mountain's Yen Zhaoge?" King Xuanqing pondered. Immortal artifact? Could it be fake news? I cannot say for sure whether there is an immortal artifact or not. After all, even if Yen Zhaoge keeps it, he would still be unable to activate its power with his cultivation base. The one who had spoken was none other than Kang Ping. Beside him, He Dongcheng and Gu Zhang both had gloomy expressions on their faces. Kang Ping continued, "Still, I heard that he indeed went to search for the dim, radiant mausoleum with the Radiant Light sect and the dim darkness sect." Shen Lingzi said, "After destroying Broad Creed Mountain and capturing and killing that Yen Zhaoge, everything will be answered. Instead, there seems to be unusual activity in the phoenix-bearing region of the South Sea." Hearing his words, King Xuanqing said slowly, "The most special place there is where Yen Zhaoge first appeared in the world beyond worlds. There is a wound of the sky that leads to a lower world. We have searched there before, but the clues are limited." A hint of gloominess flickered within his gaze. "From the looks of it now, that Yen Zhaoge is likely hiding in this lower world where time flows faster than in the world beyond worlds. Now, he has ascended to the world beyond worlds through the wound of the sky there." Shen Lingzi's gaze scanned everyone before finally landing on Daoist Shi. Daoist Shi said mildly, "This old man is still more interested in the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation." Shen Lingzi said, "This old man originally wanted to take care of them personally, cleansing my humiliation. Since junior apprentice brother Shi has said so, Let this old man make a trip to the South Sea. Kong Ping now said slowly, I will go, Grand Master. Glancing at him, Shun Lingzi nodded slowly before striding forth, transforming into a streak of light as he directly vanished from the spot. Kong Ping's frown eased as he too transformed into a streak of light, vanishing from the spot. The gazes of the others continued gazing down below, gazing down at Broad Creed Mountain. The Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners who resembled black clouds pressuring down on a city all gazed at Broad Creed Mountain. Daoist Shi's old body seemed to be filled with vigor once more. He calmly waved his hand downwards. Let's begin. Chapter 871. While Shun Lingzi and Kong Ping had left at the same time, those of the Grand Xian dynasty had no objections. Because King Xuanqing was still here, while he was inferior to Shun Lingzi, King Xuanqing was still an expert of the 8th level of the Martial Saint Realm, the mid-immortal bridge stage. Broad Creed Mountain had previously used the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation to block Shun Lingzi, but it might not be so convenient this time. Daoist Shi was the answer, while he was only an early immortal bridge martial saint, let alone the Royal Reed Sea, let alone the southeastern Yang Heaven territory. Even amongst the immortal bridge martial practitioners of the entire world beyond worlds, Daoist Shi was one of the top existences in terms of attainments in formations. Without the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation, how would Broad Creed Mountain block King Xuanqing and the other experts of the Grand Xian dynasty with? Martial practitioners who were able to walk to the immortal bridge stage were all supreme geniuses who could fight one against many when they were at a lower cultivation level. All of them cultivated in supreme martial arts that were hard to come by. The higher the level, the smaller the gap between martial artists of the same realm, and the greater the gap between martial artists of different realms. It had become extremely difficult to fight someone of a higher cultivation level. Of course, there were no absolutes in this world. There were always a few people who could create miracles. Shun Lingzi would be able to surpass the gap between the immortal bridge and seeing divinity, resisting experts of the 7th level of the martial saint realm as a 6th level martial saint. Still, against an opponent of the 8th level of the martial saint realm, even with the protection of a high-grade sacred artifact, he would only be able to escape unscathed. If he did not have a sacred artifact, he would definitely be defeated, his life in danger. This was already a miracle that countless people could only dream of. Miracles were miracles because they were rare. Daoist Shi waved his hands casually. Guzhang and He Dongcheng first bowed in greeting before descending towards Broad Creed Mountain. 2 sword lights that resembled long rivers of time descended, instantly transforming into a barrier of sword light that enveloped Broad Creed Mountain. Where the radiance passed, the flow of time in the heavens and earth surrounding Broad Creed Mountain instantly slowed. At this moment, it was as if time had been frozen. While they were not as powerful as Shun Lingzi, the combined attacks of 2 immortal bridge martial saints still resembled the pressure of Mount Tai. But at this moment, the entire world shook. A bright saber light shot into the skies from Broad Creed Mountain's heaven-rising peak with the momentum of breaking through the sky. Wherever the saber light passed, Guzhang and He Dongqing's time-flowing sword's long river of sword light was forcibly split apart. The saber light was like the momentum of the world, the tide of the era advancing. It was unstoppable and unrivaled. Even the flow of time seemed to be subdued before this vast will. A figure rose from the heaven-rising peak. He looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a handsome face with graying sideburns. On the purple saber in his hand, the silhouettes of true dragons coiled and let out deafening roars. It was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's current chief, Yendi. At this moment, Yendi's entire body flickered with light, his saber chi piercingly cold. Daoist Shi frowned. the sixth level of the martial saint realm, late seeing divinity stage. According to the words of the younger generation, this person should have ascended to the world beyond worlds less than 5 years ago. Before he could finish his thoughts, he saw a shocking scene. After cleaving apart the long river of sword light from the time-flowing sword, that terrifying saber light of Yen Di's did not cease in its momentum as it hacked straight towards Guzhong and He Dongcheng, two experts of the seventh level of the martial saint realm who had already ascended the immortal bridge, had actually been unable to stand against an opponent who was still a seeing divinity martial saint. The young opponent in front of them not only had an unimaginably fast cultivation speed, his strength was also extremely tyrannical. Beside Daoist Shi, King Xuanqing did not speak as he gazed coldly at Yen Di. Ever since Yen Di had ascended to the world beyond worlds, there had actually only been one battle in which he had truly clashed with someone. It was also that battle that had caused Yen Di's name to spread throughout the four seas when he had just arrived in the higher worlds, truly making a name for himself with a single battle. In that battle, Yen Di had domineeringly slain the third monarch of the Grand Xian dynasty, King Xuanmu. In other words, King Xuanqing's son of the first wife. The reason why Xin Lingzi had left so readily and gone to investigate the situation in the South Sea was because he knew that there was someone here who wanted to take down Broad Creed Mountain even more than he did, wanting to slaughter Broad Creed Mountain completely. Raging flames surged soundlessly, instantly covering the skies of the virtuous spirit region. In the sea below, the seawater evaporated rapidly, and the sea level plummeted. Because of the change in climate, the surrounding sea also stirred up storms, tsunamis, and the sky collapsed. King Xuanqing strode forward, shocking the heavens with a momentum that was even more terrifying than the combined forces of Guzhong and He Dongcheng. Fire in the air, fire in stone, fire in wood, samadhi fire, fire of the human realm, the 5 fires incinerating heavens. Phoenix, blue swan, great rock, peacock, white crane, swan, owl, 7 fowl filled the sky. A storm of flames that incinerated the heavens and extinguished the earth converged at a single point, the tip of the storm transforming into a violent spear that stabbed towards Yen Di as a mid-immortal bridge martial saint executed the 5 fire true art and the 7 foul treasured spear. The momentum far surpassed that of King Xuanmu, Yao Hai, and Yang Zhaozhen. Having personally slain King Xuanmu, Yen Di could feel this extremely clearly. Faced with the storm of flames before him, the flame devil world of the past was like an insignificant ember. Beneath King Xuanqing's spear, the roiling waves of heat caused everyone else on Broad Creed Mountain to feel suffocated despite being protected by the clear Qi Grand Formation. While it was not as miraculous and unfathomable as Xin Lingzi's attacks, this spear of King Xuanqing's was even more direct and ferocious. Even the spectators were like this, let alone Yen Di, who was facing it head-on. However, faced with such a ferocious attack, Yen Di's expression did not change, as his response was the same as usual. Who cares how miraculous you are, how ferocious you are? I will strike down with a saber. The majestic saber light shot into the skies, mightily colliding with the spear formed of the storm of flames up above. The expressions of Daoist Shi and the other Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners changed drastically. Before their eyes, it was actually Yen Di's saber light that was gradually breaking through King Xuanqing's spear at a speed that could be clearly seen with the naked eye. This saber opened the heavens and split the earth apart, also destroying the heavens and extinguishing the earth. It was as though the process of creation of the heavens and earth was being played out, unstoppable and undefiable. This concept had been integrated into every single one of Yen Di's moves ever since he had attained major accomplishment in his martial true intent. Looking coldly at this scene, King Xuanqing said in an indifferent tone, This king does not believe that you can keep on attacking like this." His hands did not cease as he substituted spears with fists, resembling a tempestuous storm as thousands of spears instantly descended. Violent flames rampaged throughout the entire sky, sweeping through space. Raising his head to look at King Xuanqing up above, Yandi's gaze seemed like he was looking down on him. The next moment, saber light similarly erupted consecutively, not giving way in the slightest as it broke through all of King Xuanqing's spear moves without any hesitation, even unceasingly counterattacking. King Xuanqing's gaze turned cold. How is this possible? Even if Yendi possessed supreme techniques that far surpassed martial practitioners of the same cultivation level and strength, such attacks should have been extremely taxing on him, as he should not be able to withstand a protracted battle. How could such attacks that surpassed the limits of a seeing divinity martial saint be able to be so unceasing and endless? Yet reality was just this cruel to the point that King Xuanqing of the 8th level of the martial saint realm found it hard to believe. Yendi's gaze was clear as he inhaled and exhaled through his nose. 2 streams of qi, one white and one black, surrounded his entire body, circulating unceasingly. Such powerful attacks that surpassed one's limits were indeed unable to be sustained for long. However, Yendi was currently cultivating in the yin-yang heavenly scripture that Yen Zhaoge had provided, possessing the laws of the heavens and the earth as yin and yang circulated. The rate of his true essence recovery similarly far surpassed that of ordinary people. The saber light hacked through the all-encompassing flames with the momentum of splitting the heavens. Yendi strode atop space, rising all the way as he directly arrived before King Xuanqing, chopping out with a saber. Amidst the disbelieving gazes of those of the Grand Xian dynasty, it was shockingly King Xuanqing who stumbled backwards. To be continued. Chapter 872. Taoist Shi was no longer at ease. Unlike King Xuanmu, who had already been injured in the 8 extremities world back then. This was unlike King Xuanmu, who had been at the seeing divinity stage, just like the newly ascended Yendi. This King Xuanqing before him was an expert of the 8th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-immortal bridge stage, having experienced countless battles. Still, Yendi had not relied on formations, had not relied on geography, had not relied on high-grade sacred artifacts. The saber in his hand was the heavenly dragon saber that he had reforged after ascending to the seeing divinity realm. It was a mid-grade sacred artifact. Relying solely on his own strength, one man and one saber, he forced King Xuanqing into retreat again and again. Yendi was unforgiving, his saber forming a chain of sabers that resembled the great tides of an era sweeping through the heavens and the earth as he advanced. Unstoppable, he strode forward and instantly rushed in front of King Xuanqing, a saber cleaving down again. At this moment, King Xuanqing's expression was solemn. Any underestimation or carelessness had vanished into thin air. The anger and resentment brought about by the murder of his son were all swept away. All negative emotions that could possibly affect one's judgment and mental state were instantly purged from King Xuanqing's mind. All that was left was the calmness and fighting spirit of a powerful cultivator facing another powerful opponent. Seeing that Yendi had arrived before him, King Xuanqing was fully alert, actually not evading as he forcibly received Yendi's saber with his own body. A treasured light suddenly lit up on his body as a suit of battle armor helped him to block Yendi's saber. The armor was engraved with the patterns of 7 birds, and the 5 flames were surging. A high-grade saint artifact, while King Xuanmu had lost the King Xian spear. In returning to the royal reed, see this time, King Xuanqing had brought back a 5 fires 7 foul armor for himself, together with the King Xian spear, one attacking while the other defending. King Xuanqing had always been waiting for this day. Other than taking revenge on Yen Di and all of Broad Creed Mountain, he also wanted to wrest back the King Xian's spear. An immortal bridge martial saint fully unleashed the power of a high-grade sacred artifact. Donned on King Xuanqing, the 5 fires 7 foul armor displayed shocking defensive power. Even as he forcibly received Yen Di's saber, King Xuanqing immediately stabbed towards Yen Di's chest with a spear. At such a close distance, his speed was extraordinarily fast as his fist that resembled the tip of a great spear instantly struck Yen Di's chest. Yen Di's empty left hand shot out at lightning speed, grabbing onto King Xuanqing's arm, preventing the other party's spear from advancing any further. However, that terrifying flame turned into a spear, wanting to forcefully penetrate his body. Yen Di was unafraid as he exhaled and roared. White, green, black, red, and yellow lights shone from his torso as he roared. They originated from his 5 internal organs. Within Yen Di's body, his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys seemed to reside 5 divinities, 5 heavenly emperors. The power of the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, circulated, their vitality surging. Their powerful defense and recovery abilities worked together, forcibly blocking King Xuanqing's attack. The life creation heavenly scripture, the 5 elements origin immortal body. King Xuanqing was shocked. Yen Di met his gaze coldly, the saber in his right hand spinning, directly chopping towards the enemy's arm that his left hand was gripping. Open! King Xuanqing roared, concentrating the defensive power of the 5 fires 7 foul armor onto his bracer as he forcibly resisted Yen Di's saber once more. He executed a spear barehandedly with his other hand, resembling a venomous dragon, leaving its cave as he stabbed towards Yen Di from below. Yen Di kicked out, landing a kick on King Xuanqing's elbow. It was not just his saber arts. Each and every one of Yen Di's moves seemed to condense the momentum of the heavens and the earth, destroying all that stood in his way. After blocking King Xuanqing's attack, Yen Di released King Xuanqing's other hand before his figure abruptly spun. The heavenly dragon saber was raised high into the air. Wielding it with both hands, Yen Di chopped down towards King Xuanqing's head. The sky above the spirit inheritance region seemed to shatter at this moment, the winds and clouds surging as the entire heavens and earth seemed to shatter into pieces. The scenes were still the same as before, yet they were already shattered. It was as if these heavens and earth were a painting on a piece of porcelain. And now, the porcelain had shattered. The fragments of the heavens and earth flew to the sides of Yen Di's saber before being swept along once more, trapping it behind the saber as it hacked towards King Xuanqing alongside this saber. King Xuanqing emitted a muffled groan, the defensive power of the 5 fires 7 foul armor being pushed to the maximum. A mid-grade sacred artifact spear appeared. He raised it high above his head, bolstering it with the spiritual power of the 5 fires 7 foul armor as it blocked Yen Di's saber. Amidst a boom, infinite flowing fire and saber chi shot into the surroundings. The great sea of the spirit inheritance region, which had already been roiling and roiling in the first place, was now overturned by the heavens and the earth. At the center where the forces intersected, the spear in King Xuanqing's hand was directly split into 2, breaking into 2. While he was protected by the 5 fires 7 foul armor, his chi and blood roiled as he was jolted backwards. Meanwhile, Guzhang and Dongqing did not interfere in the battle between Yen Di and King Xuanqing, as they instead shot towards Broad Creed Mountain once more. On Broad Creed Mountain, the radiance of the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation lit up once more, shooting straight into the skies. Seeing this, Dao Sure could no longer be bothered with Yen Di and King Xuanqing, as he instead earnestly observed the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation. He had once carefully analyzed the incomplete formation diagram, also frequently interacting with Shenlingzi, who cultivated in the Aeon Light heavenly scripture. Looking at the Tai imperial breaking formation now, he instantly saw through many things. Taoist sure brandished his hands, instantly inscribing countless profound runes amid space. The runes intermingled, transforming into a massive spirit formation. Streams of spiritual light appeared in the surroundings of the Royal Reed Sea, the Spirit Inheritance region, and the Desert Mountain region, and elsewhere. These spiritual lights surrounded the Spirit Inheritance region, resonating with the runes inscribed by Taoist Shi. In the next moment, a formation that was even larger than the entire Virtuous Spirit region was completely formed, enclosing everyone within it. The depths of the sea quaked as a strange beast emerged from the depths of the sea, traversing the seawater and surfacing to the surface. It was an old turtle, red and black in color, as it had the head of a bird and the tail of a snake. Its name was the Cyclone Turtle, being a very rare demon race currently. This Cyclone Turtle was a spirit pet that Taoist Shi had reared. The Cyclone Turtle appeared, the patterns on its shell inscribed with the marks of time. Now, spirit patterns lit up on its shell as well, combining with the grand formation currently enveloping Broad Creed Mountain. Numerous red and black rings of light suffused the heavens and the earth, unceasingly corroding the white light manifested of the Tai imperial breaking formation. Beneath the effects of this formation, the power of the Tai imperial breaking formation began to decline, gradually being suppressed and dispelled. Without the suppression of the Tai imperial breaking formation, the Grand Xian dynasty experts, led by Gu Zhang, and He Dongqing instantly released their shackles, beginning to forcibly attack Broad Creed Mountain. Still, Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone wielded the King Xian spear, directly blocking Gu Zhang's path. The other Broad Creed Mountain martial practitioners were not flustered as they joined forces to obstruct He Dongqing and the other Grand Xian experts, the battle falling into a stalemate for a time. On the other side, Yan Di glanced downwards, suddenly striking out viciously with another saber as he temporarily repelled King Xuanqing. Then he spun at lightning speed, striding out as he instantly arrived before He Dongqing before chopping out with a saber. He Dongqing was greatly shocked, not daring to hesitate in the slightest due to his accurate judgment as he immediately gave up on his opponents, transforming into a streak of light as he dodged to the side. However, as Yan Di's saber that opened the heavens slashed out, He Dongqing still emitted a tragic groan. That sword light that resembled a flowing river was instantly dyed with a layer of blood. To be continued. Chapter 873. Amidst space, beneath Yan Di's saber, the early immortal bridge martial saint He Dongqing was instantly injured. Taoist Shi's expression was solemn as he pointed in the air. In the void, red and black light intertwined and instantly turned into an irregularly shaped hexagon, protecting He Dongqing like a shield. As Yan Di's saber hacked onto that shield of light, it immediately shattered. However, He Dongqing had already made use of this to escape. Like a stream of light, he quickly fled far away, putting some distance between them. On the other side, King Xuanqing's will was firm and decisive as he did not hold back against Yan Di in the slightest due to their earlier clash. At the same time that Yan Di changed direction, King Xuanqing immediately switched from defense to attack, pursuing closely behind Yan Di. Now that Yan Di was obstructed by Taoist Shi's heaven-earth divination formation, King Xuanqing's attack instantly arrived behind him. At the same time, more than one red-black shield of light appeared, surrounding Yan Di from all directions. Where the light shield passed, space was completely locked down, joining forces to imprison Yan Di where he was. A cold light flickered in Yan Di's eyes, his saber light surging as he vaguely displayed the effects of the Tai imperial breaking formation. His own speed seemed to have suddenly sped up as the movements of his surrounding opponents all vaguely slowed by a beat. He raised his shoulder and took King Xuanqing's spear head-on. The initial 5 elements deific immortal body that he had obtained from cultivating the life creation, heavenly scripture, once more displayed its formidable defensive power, blocking King Xuanqing's attack. At the same time, a majestic saber light lit up as Yan Di broke through the restrictive power of the heaven-earth divination formation, killing his way out of the encirclement. King Xuanqing and Daoist Shi both had grave expressions on their faces. Daoist Shi put his palms together and pushed them forward. Between heaven and earth, streams of red and black light crisscrossed, manifesting irregularly shaped shields of light that looked like pieces of turtle shells. A total of 49 tortoise shells appeared, coinciding with the number of Dian, appearing in the void. At this moment, the heaven and earth divination formation was activated to the maximum by Daoist Shi. The virtuous spirit region, as well as the surrounding void, seemed to have been split into 49 portions at this moment, no longer connected to one another. Under the operation of the formation, the size and range of each void constantly changed, allowing Daoist Shi to control it as he pleased. Beneath the effects of the heaven-earth divination formation, whenever Yan Di attacked his opponent, he would discover that the distance between them seemed to instantly become incomparably far. All of the calculations he had made regarding distance, speed, and time when he had attacked earlier were all meaningless, and when King Xuanqing and the others attacked him, the distance between them instantly shrank to the point of almost disappearing, catching him off guard. The others of Broad Creed Mountain were also facing the same problem. Caught off guard, he almost suffered a great loss. A cold light flickered within Yan Di's eyes as the momentum of his saber skyrocketed. Under the illumination of the saber light, cracks immediately appeared on the red-black tortoise shell. However, King Xuanqing decisively charged over now, relying on the defensive power of the high-grade sacred artifact, the 5 Fires 7 Foul armor, to forcibly resist Yan Di's saber head-on. With the help of the heaven and earth divination formation, it made things much easier for him. And with him blocking the blade in front, it bought Daoist Shi some time. While Yan Di's saber light shook the heaven-earth divination formation unceasingly, with King Xuanqing's interference, Daoist Shi was able to unceasingly repair and adjust the formation, causing it to continue circulating. From the start of the battle, Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone's attention had always been on Daoist Shi. His opponent was indeed worthy of being a grandmaster of formations amongst the immortal bridge martial saints of the entire world beyond worlds. Even as he dispelled the Tai Imperial breaking formation, he had even been able to reverse the situation and establish such a grand formation, looking like the spirit inheritance region would soon become the Grand Xian dynasty's home ground. Not being Yan Zhaoge himself, he would not be able to analyze the intricacies of the variations of the formation. Still, after observing the heaven-earth divination formation for a moment, Yan Zhaoge suddenly moved. The Northern Ocean clone raised the King Xian spear, directly abandoning Gu Zhang before virtually teleporting, his spear stabbing out amid space where there were no enemies. Yet with this single spear, the circulation of the heaven-earth divination formation instantly slowed slightly. Daoist Shi's expression suddenly changed. Of the 50 divination numbers, 9 out of 40 were used, with the grand unity not being used. The heaven-earth divination formation possessed the great power of shifting the cosmos. Yet its core, the position of the grand unity, was not fixed as it was constantly changing. Restricting the position of the grand unity would affect the entire formation. Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone's spear was precisely aimed at the position of the grand unity. As the circulation of the entire grand formation slowed slightly, the first to feel the changes was Yan Di. As the saber descended, King Xuanqing was unable to block it in time as a few tortoise shells instantly shattered mightily. Daoist Shi's figure rapidly descended onto the back of the cyclone turtle down below, his palm striking the actual tortoise shell. Streams of light flew up from the back of the cyclone turtle, rapidly replenishing the heaven-earth divination formation. Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone traversed amidst space, unceasingly capturing the constantly changing position of the Grand Unity. Gu Zhang chased after him, the sword light of the time flowing sword extraordinarily fast. While the Northern Ocean clone excelled in speed, he was still lacking in cultivation base at the end of the day, as Gu Zhang very quickly caught up to him. The next moment, however, Gu Zhang suddenly felt a chill from the bottom of his heart as he virtually unconsciously retreated to evade. Indeed, Yandi's figure spun, already arriving before him, as he slashed out with a saber. It was all thanks to King Xuanqing's assistance that Gu Zhang managed to escape this tribulation. In the lands of the Spirit Inheritance region, the battle between the two sides was nearing its climax. Now, however, the sky suddenly shook. Space mightily broke apart as a massive star-plucking hand extended out from amidst the shattered darkness of space. That palm glowed with starlight as numerous stars seemed to circulate within, massive to the point of obscuring the heavens and obscuring the sun. With such an obvious characteristic, both sides instantly realized the identity of this third party who had suddenly appeared. The star-plucking practitioner Guan Lide, a late immortal bridge martial saint. The giant starlight hand stopped in the sky and didn't descend immediately. The figure of a middle-aged scholar appeared, gazing down at Broad Creed Mountain down below. Is Yan Zhaoga here? Both sides were rather wary of the sudden arrival of Guan Lide, as they remained vigilant against this uninvited guest. Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone had been about to answer, when Yan Di had already spoken first. What is it that you have come to find my son Zhaoga for? After repelling King Xuanqing with a saber, he exhaled slowly as he gazed at Guan Lide. While he had asked this, Yan Di had already basically guessed the other party's intentions in coming. When Yan Zhaoga had been searching for the dim, radiant mausoleum, this person had acted against him, having been made a fool of by the dim darkness sect Zhou Haoxing. If not for Lin Hanhua's interference, Guan Lide would virtually have destroyed the dim darkness sect. The Radiant Light sect had spread the news that Yan Zhaoga had obtained the dim radiant wheel all over the Royal Reed Sea. Broad Creed Mountain was naturally no exception. It was just that they had been busy dealing with the Grand Xian dynasty, as they had not been able to pursue this matter for the time being. Guan Lide's intentions in suddenly appearing here were clear as day. You are Yan Zhaoga's father? You can stand up for him? Guan Lide's gaze flickered slightly as he looked at Yan Di, able to suppress someone of the 8th level of the Martial Saint realm at the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm. Rare, truly rare indeed. Yan Di said, You praise me too much. Guan Lide's gaze swept the heavens and earth of the Spirit Inheritance region as he said, Slowly, I will not say anything else. Give me the immortal artifact left behind by the dim radiant emperor, and I will assist your Broad Creed Mountain in resolving the problem at hand. Chapter 874. Hearing Guan Lide's words, everyone of Broad Creed Mountain frowned. The other side was clearly taking advantage of the situation, forcing them to sign an alliance. Guan Lide said neither hurriedly nor slowly, There is no need for you to deny it. A figure appeared beside him. It was none other than the chief of the Radiant Light sect, Luo Ziyuan. Luo Ziyuan glanced at Guan Lide with a complex expression on his face before his gaze fell on those of Broad Creed Mountain and the Grand Xian dynasty. After a while, Luo Ziyuan said in a heavy tone, The immortal artifact left behind by the emperor in the past resembled a wheel on the outside, having 12 holes. The dim radiant lamp was also merged with that wheel-shaped immortal artifact. It is currently with Broad Creed Mountain's Yan Zhaoga. With that, Radiance flickered within his pupils as the scenes of that time appeared. Even Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing's gazes were drawn over. When they had received the news earlier, they had still been uncertain whether they believed it or not. From the looks of it now, however, it was very likely to be true. The dim radiant Emperor Yin Tianxia had actually really left behind an immortal artifact after his death, and this immortal artifact had even ended up in Yan Zhaoga's hands. Guanlai gazed down at Broad Creed Mountain. While it is still only an embryonic immortal artifact, having yet to be completely refined, it is still not something you can possess. Even if it is not me, there will still be others who will come asking for it. Coincidentally, Chao Dongnan admires you father and son very much. I might as well give him some face and hand over the immortal artifact to me, and I will help you deal with your opponents. Hearing his words, Yendi raised his brows slightly. Our sect can deal with the enemies before us. There is no need to trouble you. Glancing at him, Guanlai said mildly, You seem to have misunderstood. I did not discuss this with you. I must obtain the immortal artifact left behind by the dim radiant emperor. Without those of the Grand Xian dynasty present, if you do not hand it over, I will directly break down your sect. It is the same now. If you do not hand over the immortal artifact, I will join forces with those of the Grand Xian dynasty to attack you. These two choices make no difference to me. I have been old friends with Chao Dongnan for many years. Even if he learns of this afterwards, he will not say anything. Guanlai turned to look at Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing. It's the same for the two of you. Do not obstruct me from obtaining the immortal artifact. Everyone can go their own way. If you want to compete with me, then let's fight it out. King Xuanqing knit his brows as Daoist Shi's ancient voice now resounded. Since the star-plucking practitioner is familiar with the southeastern exalt, you should know that we are not people without any background at all. Even amongst our fellow disciples active in the Royal Reed Sea, those here are far from all of us. However, we have only one goal in coming here, which is to destroy Broad Creed Mountain and capture and kill Yan Zhaoga and his son. As long as Broad Creed Mountain is breached, you can take whatever you want. This old man definitely has no objections. After a moment of silence, King Xuanqing said in a deep voice, We also have no interest in that immortal artifact, embryo. Guanlai nodded. I have a rough idea of who is standing behind you all. However, since I'm here to fight for the immortal artifact, I'll be competing with more than one or two major figures. I already know the risks I'll have to take, so adding one more won't make a difference. It is just that since I just so happened to arrive here as the news spread, I naturally had to make good use of this opportunity. Only then would I have any hope of being the first to obtain it. Guanlai lowered his head to look at Broad Creed Mountain. It was originally my intention to join forces with your opponents and quickly take down your Broad Creed Mountain. That would save the most time. Anyway, they would not be able to compete with me. On account of Southeast Chao's sake, I gave you a chance to save yourselves. Since you won't accept a toast, I can only treat you to a forfeit. Amidst his words, that massive hand condensed of starlight slammed down towards Broad Creed Mountain. As that massive hand that could grasp even the stars descended, its momentum was virtually about to rip the entire spirit inheritance region out of the heavens and earth of the world beyond worlds. Yendi raised his brows as he brandished the heavenly dragon saber within his hands horizontally in midair. The internal organs of his body shook slightly, resembling 5 divinities awakening from a deep slumber. 5 colored lights spurted out, transforming into a multicolored mist which enveloped Yendi's entire body. The next moment, the 5-colored light ascended, condensing on the heavenly dragon saber. As the light circulated, it resembled a barrier which blocked Guanlai's descending palm. The massive, heaven-obscuring hand seemed to lose its miraculousness for a time as it was no longer able to envelop the entire spirit inheritance region, as it gradually shrunk to the size of an ordinary human hand. Guanlide's pure white palm extended from within his sleeve, pressing down on Yen Di's saber. He exerted more force with his hand. The numerous stars circulated at an even greater speed, resembling the descent of a meteor shower. That massive starlight hand appeared once more, wanting to envelop the sky, once more as it suppressed Yen Di and broad Creed Mountain beneath it. Yen Di's expression was calm as his expression did not change. He inhaled deeply, the acupoints of his entire body pulsing as streams of qi surged, transforming into two intermingling qis of black and white, yin and yang coexisting in an endless stream. That massive starlight hand dissipated once more, Guanlide's palm appearing in its original form. Guanlide's expression turned slightly more serious. Why does it look like the life creation heavenly scripture, an yin-yang heavenly scripture of the jade clear, direct lineage? Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing had solemn expressions on their faces, as they had already seen through some clues earlier. Now, they were even more certain of it. Still, there was no turning back. Guanlide was determined to obtain the dim radiant wheel. Since he had already made a move, he would not hold anything back. Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing did not just stand by and watch as they immediately led the other Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners in attacking Yen Di and broad Creed Mountain together. With Guanlide of the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm making a move, the pressure that broad Creed Mountain faced was instantly different. Yen Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone said from below, "Father, while it is not suitable, why don't you make do with it for now?" He separated the heaven-swallowing, earth-devouring box from Pan Pan before patting the sword box. The box opened, black light shooting into the skies. Coincidentally, broad Creed Mountain currently possessed more than a single high-grade sacred artifact. Yet, there just happened to be none suitable for Yen Di. The extreme Yin crown could be ignored. The evil sword Tao Tai and the King Xian spear were both not suitable for Yen Di. The cold Sun Divine saber had yet to be perfected, as it was still not a true high-grade sacred artifact. While it could be of use to Yen Di of the 4th level of the Martial Saint realm, it was not as compatible with his martial Dao as the Heavenly Dragon Saber was currently at the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm. The only thing he could use was the Extreme Yang seal. Firstly, he would have to spend some time cultivating in the Extreme Yang scripture. Secondly, Yen Zhaoga would have to use it in secluded cultivation, as it had been brought down to the vast ocean world and was currently not at broad Creed Mountain. Yen Zhaoga had asked Yen Di if he wanted to make do with it for now. Still, even so, the evil sword Tao Tai would still be able to display more power in Yen Di's hands than in the hands of the Northern Ocean clone and Pan Pan. While Yen Di was famed beneath the heavens for his saber, he was proficient in sword arts as well. He was one of the few people of broad Creed Mountain who was proficient in all the 8 extreme arts. These included the Great Heaven Earth sword and the Big Dipper sword. His saber intent was displayed with every movement he made, resembling the roiling momentum of the heavens and the earth, as it was unstoppable. It was displayed to the point of perfection with the saber. It could also be used with the sword. It was just that the concept of the evil sword Tao Tai was completely different from Yen Di's saber intent. Still, as a high-grade sacred artifact, the sword itself possessed great power. The two combined would still be extraordinary. Yen Di shook his head. No need. He descended. Seeing this, the Northern Ocean clone retracted the King Xian spear, using the even stronger evil sword Tao Tai to replace Pan Pan's original position. Yen Di descended, establishing the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation alongside Yuan Zhengfeng, the Northern Ocean clone, and Feng Yunsheng. To be continued. Chapter 875. The Tai Imperial Braking Formation controlled by Yen Di was much more powerful than the one controlled by Yen Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. Even though Daoist Shi had activated the Heaven-Earth Divination Formation, it was difficult for him to resolve it in a short amount of time. Bolstered by the Tai Imperial Braking Formation, Yen Di's momentum surged once more. Daoist Shi frowned. The Heaven and Earth Divination Formation was fully activated, splitting the void. King Xuanqing and the others were situated in different regions of space, resisting those of Broad Creed Mountain, who were bolstered by the Tai Imperial Braking Formation. The two great formations displayed their respective effects. Both sides attacked each other, causing the heavens and earth to shake. Amidst this, Yen Di attacked, each saber faster than the previous as he rampaged through the surrounding area. While he was unable to leave the formation and guard Broad Creed Mountain, under Yen Zhaoga's guidance, Yen Di's saber light unceasingly hacked towards the Heaven-Earth Divination Formation, attacking the Grand Unity position at its core. This time, Daoist Shi controlled the Cyclone Tortoise and personally made a move, also vying for the position of Supreme Oneness as he blocked Yen Di's saber light and ensured the circulation of the Heaven-Earth Divination Formation. However, with his cultivation base, even with the protection of the Cyclone Turtle, he would still be hard-pressed to stand against Yen Di. Only with Yen Di not leaving Broad Creed Mountain was Daoist Shi barely able to hold on. When Guanlide saw this, a trace of seriousness finally appeared in his eyes. Gazing at Broad Creed Mountain down below, he said slowly, "Possessing such strength at such a cultivation base, it is truly not easy. He is a heaven-defying genius. I pity your talents, so I don't want to kill you all. I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to hand over the immortal weapon, or not?" Gazing at Guanlide, Yen Di said in an indifferent tone, "If you have any capabilities, just bring it on. Why the need to beat around the bush?" Guanlide looked coldly at Yen Di. "I felt pity for your talent, yet you sought your own death. A person like you indeed cannot be left alive, or you will definitely become a great threat in the future." Stars gathered above his head, and a resplendent crown of stars appeared. In an instant, the starlight in the real sky above dimmed. Between the heavens and the earth, Guanlide resembled the ruler of the stardust as he descended upon Broad Creed Mountain. A 9th-level martial saint wielding a high-grade sacred artifact. At this level, martial practitioners and high-grade sacred artifacts could gradually help each other, vaguely surpassing their previous limits. Yen Di was undaunted as his saber light flew, bolstered by the Tai Imperial Braking Formation as he brazenly clashed with Guanlide. However, on the other side, Daoist Shi, King Xuanqing, and the other Grand Xian Dynasty martial practitioners were already attacking together. In the end, Daoist Shi's attainments in array formations were profound. Although he was unable to break the Tai Imperial Braking Array in a short time, he was able to greatly interfere with the operation of the Tai Imperial Braking Array. The attacks of the others enveloped the heavens and covered the earth as they assaulted Broad Creed Mountain. At this moment, Broad Creed Mountain resembled a lone boat amidst the tempestuous waves, bobbing up and down. Even so, their expressions were still composed. Still, they would occasionally shift their gazes towards Yen Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone. Guanlide had come for the dim radiant wheel, engaging in a heaven-shaking, earth-overturning battle with Broad Creed Mountain here. In truth, however, Yen Zhaoga himself and the dim radiant wheel were not at Broad Creed Mountain at all. The Grand Xian Dynasty knew this, as Shunlingzi and Kong Ping had headed to the southern part of the Royal Reed Sea to capture Yen Zhaoga. Guanlide, however, did not understand this, as he thought that Yen Zhaoga had not appeared because his cultivation base at the 3rd level of the Martial Saint realm would not be of much use in this current battle. Feeling the gazes of his fellow disciples, the Northern Ocean clone smiled. The southern part of the Royal Reed Sea, the Phoenix-bearing region. As soon as abnormalities had occurred with the wound of the sky here, the person of the Grand Xian dynasty in charge of guarding over this region, Lord Protector Zheng of the Four Lord Protectors, had hurried over. As he hurried to where the wound of the sky was, he ordered people to inform Shen Lingzi, King Xuanqing, and Dao Wisher, who were preparing to launch an expedition to the Spirit Inheritance region. When he had arrived at the wound of the sky, he saw that the pillar of light that shot into the heavens had actually still yet to dissipate. The crevice between the heavens and the earth in midair had not closed, as it was still distorted. Still, it had become much more blurry. A figure stood between the heavens and the earth, bathed in the pillar of light. That was a youth who was garbed in white clothes and a blue robe with black borders. Before the youth was a three-legged pill furnace that was completely purplish gold in color and emanated clouds and mist. On top of the pill furnace, there was a smaller black furnace that was inverted. The two pill furnaces had their lids opened, their mouths facing each other. Just like this, they looked exceptionally strange. Lord Protector Zheng could not be any more familiar with that youth's appearance. Currently, there was no one in the entire Royal Reed Sea who did not know of him. Broad Creed Mountains, Yen Zhaoga, he was in the vast ocean world before this. Lord Protector Zheng's heart sunk. He broke through space there and saw true divinity, attaining the early seeing divinity stage and ascending to the world beyond worlds. While he was a late-seeing divinity martial saint, Lord Protector Zheng was currently unable to relax at all. Yen Zhaoga's battle accomplishments aside, his father Yen Di had slain King Xuanmu of the 6th level of the martial saint realm upon ascending that year, shooting to fame with a single battle. While King Xuanmu had been injured then, Yen Di's valiant might had still been evident. Being similarly at the 6th level of the martial saint realm, Lord Protector Zheng's strength was inferior to King Xuanmu's, as he was naturally not confident at this moment. He was prepared to monitor Yen Zhaoga from afar, locking onto his movements as he waited for Shen Lingzi and King Xuanqing to come and deal with him. Just as Lord Protector Zheng was pondering about this, he saw the acupoints of Yen Zhaoga's entire body flicker with radiance, the light of fire actually vaguely leaping about amidst the radiance. It was as though numerous stars had been set ablaze. Lord Protector Zheng was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied, lighting up starfire. This is the sign of an early-seeing divinity martial saint advancing towards the mid-seeing divinity stage. Still, didn't this Yen Zhaoga just ascend from the seeing divinity martial saint realm? With just a single acupoint having been refined to see divinity, how could he possibly light up starfire? Unless this person simultaneously or consecutively refined multiple acupoints, shooting up to the peak of the 4th level of the martial saint realm within an extremely short period of time, reaching the limit. Only then would he be able to attempt breaking through the limit, advancing towards a higher level. Lighting up starfire should originally be a matter within the body of a martial practitioner. Outsiders should not be able to see it at all. The disturbance caused by him lighting up starfire is so great. How abundant must his strength be then? Without having clashed, without having come into contact, just looking at this scene from afar, Lord Protector Zheng felt a chill rising up from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, instantly enveloping his entire body as though he had fallen into an icy cavern. When martial practitioners were breaking through, they could not be disturbed by others. This was originally the most suitable time to launch a sneak attack. Still, looking at the scene before him, Lord Protector Zheng actually dared not act rashly. The truth proved that his choice was correct, yet also futile. This was because Yen Zhaoga had virtually instantly surpassed the unattainable barrier of countless martial practitioners, stepping into the 5th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-seeing divinity stage. The starlight and illusory flames around his body were simultaneously retracted. Other than his abnormal movements in midair, Yan Zhaoga's current appearance resembled that of an ordinary person who had never cultivated in martial arts before. Yan Zhaoga smiled, his gaze shifting as it accurately fell on the figure of Lord Protector Zheng in the distance. Lord Protector Zheng's heart thumped madly, as he could only feel that a great calamity was about to befall him. He immediately realized that it would be impossible for him to succeed in monitoring Yan Zhaoga, as staying behind would instead result in his death. Without any hesitation whatsoever, Lord Protector Zheng turned and left. Yan Zhaoga stood where he was, not immediately making a move, as he first kept the two interlocked furnaces neither hurriedly nor slowly. Then he smiled, striding forward. The next instant, he was directly behind Lord Protector Zheng. To be continued. Chapter 876. Yan Zhaoga instantly arrived behind Lord Protector Zheng at a speed that far surpassed his imagination. The great rock spear of the Grand Qian dynasty's royal family's seven-fowl treasured spear could be said to specialize in speed as well. Of the powers active in the royal reed sea originally, only those of the Radiant Light sect who cultivated in the 1,000 illusory streaking light arc could match it in speed. As an expert of the 6th level of the Martial Saint realm, while Lord Protector Zheng was inferior to King Xuanmu, he was still extraordinary. As he had intended to flee, he had directly used the great rock spear to bring himself flying. Yet Yan Zhaoga had actually been even faster than him. "You are the Grand Qian dynasty's Lord Protector Zheng?" Yan Zhaoga had previously seen images of the peak experts of the Grand Qian dynasty, having already recognized him with a single glance. He could not help but smile, shaking his head. "Back then, at that branch altar of the dim darkness sect, we two met by chance. Still, it was fortunate that we did not see each other then. Otherwise, I would probably be in deep trouble. I would also not be able to converse with you like this now." Lord Protector Zheng's face was livid as he thought that Yan Zhaoga was toying with him. He did not know that not long after Yan Zhaoga had arrived in the world beyond worlds for the first time with the help of the paper fan, a branch altar of the dim darkness sect had been attacked by the Grand Qian dynasty in the end. Back then, it had been precisely Lord Protector Zheng who had led the attack. At that time, Yan Zhaoga had still yet to transcend mortality and enter sainthood, as his cultivation base had been far inferior to Lord Protector Zheng's. Now, however, Lord Protector Zheng was still a 6th level martial saint, while Yan Zhaoga had already reached the 5th level of the martial saint realm, his strength far surpassing that of his opponents. Speaking of which, quite a few years had already passed. Thinking about it now, Yan Zhaoga felt rather emotional. Lord Protector Zheng snorted. "Kid of the Yan family, don't be arrogant. Even though your cultivation base has advanced by leaps and bounds now, you are still too inexperienced. Many of my Grand Qian dynasty's ancestors have returned to the royal reed sea this time, sweeping through all beneath the heavens, already cannot be stopped," he said hatefully. "Even if you immediately turn tail and flee now, attempting to flee from the royal reed sea, you might not be able to get what you want." Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoga could not help but laugh. "You are hinting to me that even if I kill you, it would be useless. I might as well just let you go, hurriedly turning around and fleeing for my life. Saving some time, I might even be able to live a little longer." Having his thoughts seen through by Yan Zhaoga, Lord Protector Zheng's expression changed slightly. Yan Zhaoga shook his head, retracting his smile as he said earnestly, "From a certain perspective, it is only today that this Yan has truly arrived in the world beyond worlds. Settling the enmity between me and your Grand Qian dynasty shall be this Yan's first battle in the world beyond worlds." Looking at Lord Protector Zheng, Yan Zhaoga said calmly, "Starting with you." Saying thus, Yan Zhaoga raised his palm, directly flipping it over and slamming it down towards the top of Lord Protector Zheng's head. Lord Protector Zheng shouted angrily. How could he resign himself to death? He immediately retaliated, however, accompanied by the descent of Yan Zhaoge's palm. Lord Protector Zheng could only feel as though the sky before him had directly collapsed, the heavens and earth spinning in reverse. This terrifying power that could reverse heaven and earth directly locked him in place, completely unable to shift his body. The true essence turned into raging flames that soared into the sky, but in the next instant, it was immediately extinguished. Even the heavens and earth were overturned, let alone a few flames in this world. Lord Protector Zheng's eyes looked on the brink of imploding as he saw Yan Zhaoge's palm descending, yet he was unable to muster any strength, even being unable to evade it. If one were to say that many opponents of Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal had been mentally intimidated by Yan Zhaoge's fist intent earlier, now Lord Protector Zheng really seemed like he was facing a terrifying calamity of the heavens and earth overturning in reverse. However he resisted and evaded, he was unable to avoid this palm of Yan Zhaoge's. A boom resounded as Yan Zhaoge's palm mightily descended. The mid-grade sacred artifacts and low-grade sacred artifacts that Lord Protector Zheng carried had not even been able to display their effects when the crown of his head had already been shattered by Yan Zhaoge's palm. After slaying his opponent with a single palm, Yan Zhaoge no longer looked at him as he just casually kept Lord Protector Zheng's treasures before throwing them all into those two interlocking furnaces. Next, Yan Zhaoge directly strode off in the northwest direction towards Broad Creed Mountain in the Spirit Inheritance region. He was swift as he instantly traversed the endless ocean. After walking for a while, Yan Zhaoge's heart jolted slightly as he gazed into the distance. He saw a sword-light chopping over towards him. The sword-light resembled a long river of time, vast and mighty as it never ceased. The radiance was not bright and bright as it was even mild as water. Where the sword-light passed, however, the heavens and the earth were all pale and blurry. The newcomer's voice contained infinite hatred as it resounded one word at a time. Yan Zhao Ge. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge laughed loudly. Kong Ping, you've come at the right time. The newcomer was none other than the head of the Grand Xian dynasty's Xunling 10 Swords, the former #1 expert of the Royal Reed Sea, Kong Ping. Due to Madame Kang's death, they had become sworn enemies. Afterwards, Yan Zhaoge had sent him plummeting into the deep, black hole formed of the Taotia's remnant body at the bottom of the clear scenic region. Several years later, he had finally escaped. All his fury and hatred had transformed into a cold, resolute killing intent at this moment, while Kong Ping's face was expressionless, as no anger could be seen on his face at all. His voice caused a chill to run down one's spine. Yan Zhaoge, there is no Lin Hanhua to protect you this time. If the Shadow Mountain Sword King had not acted that year, you would not have been able to keep me here. Yan Zhaoge met Kong Ping's gaze, smiling. Rather, I wonder if anyone will be able to protect you today. When my father first ascended to the world beyond worlds that year, he once said that it would truly be a joyous thing in life to have an expert as a sacrifice. I share the same opinion as my father on this. He stood in midair, his hands behind his back, as he tilted his head slightly to look at Kong Ping. Oh, there is still a slight difference. My father was a sacrifice to the saber, while I was a sacrifice to the sword. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Kong Ping did not waste words as he directly stabbed out with his sword. I will not sacrifice you to my sword. I will sacrifice your head to my wife. Having been trapped in the black hole at the bottom of the clear scenic region for many years, Kong Ping's sword had not become dull. His time-flowing sword was just like when he had wanted to kill Yan Zhaoge for the first time that year, possessing a shocking momentum and sharp sword intent. Everything was even more than that. Yan Zhaoge did not conceal his cultivation base at all. At first glance, Kong Ping could vaguely tell that Yen Zhaoge was actually not just at the fourth level of the martial saint realm. Instead, he had shockingly attained the fifth level of the martial saint realm. That youth who had only been able to flee for his life beneath his sword that year was already not far from his current cultivation base. Meanwhile, how terrifying must the strength of this youth, who had always presided over most others, be now? Kong Ping was unable to tell. Still, no one could stop him from avenging his wife's death. He and Yen Zhaoge were absolutely irreconcilable. Therefore, his choice was to immediately attack with all his might. Not only did he use his full strength, but he also activated the high-grade sacred artifact, the cloud-revolving heavenly light sword. With the support of the sacred artifact, Kong Ping, whose strength was already outstanding in the first place, was already close to that of his Grand Master, Shun Lingzi. With a single slash, the world in front of him turned into a void turbulence. Yen Zhaoge looked at this enemy whom he had once had to use all of his abilities to deal with empty-handed, an enemy whom he had not been fully confident of being able to withstand. The Sword of Time. Yen Zhaoge chuckled. The flow of time is indeed one of the most powerful existences in this world, able to change many things. The two interlocked cauldrons appeared. With a light pat, the internal crystal furnace separated from the profound sky purple gold furnace. Within the internal crystal furnace, streaks of purple light shot into the sky as a dark green bamboo cane slowly rose from within. It was divided into 7 sections and was 7 feet long. To be continued. Chapter 877. As Kong Ping cultivated in the Aeon Light heavenly scripture, his sword seemed to ignore the flow of time as it was swift to the extreme. Opponents whose cultivation bases were inferior to his would often be slain by his sword before they could even react. Yet, in the eyes of the current Yen Zhaoge, while Kong Ping's movements were still very fast, each and every one of his movements could be seen clearly. Yen Zhaoge's movements were similarly very fast, but he appeared very leisurely as he was completely unflustered. The dark green bamboo cane that flickered with purple light landed in Yen Zhaoge's hands. The next moment, red light flickered amidst the purple radiance. Yen Zhaoge raised the bamboo cane, drawing a semicircle in midair, before solidly striking the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword that Kong Ping was wielding. A crisp "pa" resounded as the sword light of the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword instantly dimmed somewhat. Kong Ping's pupils abruptly dilated. His sword intent that had previously been one with the sword in his hand with no distinction between the two directly broke apart. The cloud-circulating heavenly light sword was directly knocked aside by the dark green bamboo cane in Yen Zhaoge's hand. The high-grade sacred artifact emitted an unceasing ringing that resembled a person moaning in agony. Kong Ping could even see a slight crack actually appearing on the blade of the sword that was clear as autumn waters. The blurry yet mild sword light suddenly turned bright and dazzling at this moment. It was as if a point had suddenly appeared amidst the endless river of time. Time was severed, the human world thrown into chaos. Yen Zhaoge strode forward, trampling on that river of time that seemed to reign above all. Kong Ping's expression was solemn like never before. He knew of the existence of this dark green bamboo cane. His son Kong Jinyuan had once suffered greatly at Yen Zhaoge's bamboo cane. When Kong Ping had heard of this matter afterwards, he had similarly been unable to understand it no matter how hard he thought about it. Now that he had personally seen this bamboo cane and felt its profundities, he was still unable to comprehend it. There was no majestic power. There was no special concept. There was no abundant spiritual chi. There was nothing at all. Yet it caused the high-grade sacred artifact that he wielded, the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword, to tremble. What Kong Ping was more concerned about was that according to Kong Jinyuan, this bamboo cane should have 5 segments and be 5 feet long. It could take down a low-grade sacred artifact, yet be unable to do anything to the mid-grade sacred artifact, the turbid heavenly mirror armor. But now, this bamboo staff was clearly 7 feet long, and even the high-grade sacred artifact, the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword, could not withstand it. This thing is getting stronger and stronger. Kong Ping thought of many legendary treasures, but none of them matched. Grasping the dark green bamboo cane in his right hand, Yan Zhaoge lightly exercised his wrist, the bamboo cane spinning and dancing in midair. When the bamboo cane in his hand had 5 segments, all weapons below the level of a holy weapon would be shattered into dust in one strike. Lower holy weapons would not be able to withstand it. At the 6th segment, it could kill a low-grade sacred weapon with a single strike. If it were to hit a mid-grade sacred weapon, the latter would be afraid to avoid it. However, to Yan Zhaoge, who possessed more than a single high-grade sacred artifact, mid-grade sacred artifacts already posed no threat to him. What he needed was a trump card that could restrain his enemy's high-grade sacred weapon. Immortal Bridge Martial Saints were able to fully exert the power of high-grade sacred artifacts. The combined might of an immortal Bridge Martial Saint wielding a high-grade sacred artifact far surpassed that of a Seeing Divinity Martial Saint wielding a high-grade sacred artifact. Even if this Seeing Divinity Martial Saint was able to challenge Immortal Bridge Martial Saints with his strength, he would still be disadvantaged due to his weapon. The answer to this problem lay in this dark, green bamboo cane that Yan Zhaoge had specially forged for himself. 6 segments wouldn't work, but 7 segments would. When Yan Zhaoge had attained the Seeing Divinity stage, this bamboo cane would have grown from 6 to 7 segments. Yan Zhaoge had long since been prepared for this moment. What outsiders did not know was that besides the heavenly dragon saber that Yan Di possessed and the immortal talisman embroidered robe that Yuan Zhengfeng wore, all the mid-grade sacred artifacts that Broad Creed Mountain had accumulated over the years had actually all been brought to the vast ocean world by Yan Zhaoge. Precipitous golden armor, cloud commanding spear, his gains from killing Buddhist martial practitioners, and the Eastern Exalt's lineage, his gains from killing Grand Xian dynasty martial practitioners, most mid-grade sacred artifacts were unable to descend to the lower worlds. Yan Zhaoge directly stuffed them all into the profound sky purple gold furnace to suppress them. All these years, so many mid-grade sacred artifacts had all been gathered with Yan Zhaoge just for this day. After Yan Zhaoge saw divinity and ascended to the world beyond worlds, he immediately started refining the dark green bamboo cane. Now, the 7-foot bamboo staff had appeared in this world, and it specialized in dealing with high-grade sacred weapons. Yan Zhaoge swung his arm, striking down with his staff as the sword light of the cloud circulating heavenly light sword instantly dimmed somewhat. As Kong Ping's thoughts raced, his eyes narrowed. The sword light that resembled water abruptly retracted and condensed, landing on Kong Ping's body. His movements instantly became extraordinarily fast, his speed rising yet another level. He was as fast as a streak of light, his figure appearing and disappearing amidst space as it was hard to catch. Since he could not block it, he would not block it then. He raised his speed to the maximum, striking slow with speed, as that bamboo cane was unable to touch the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword. "Pa!" Kong Ping stared wide-eyed. Yan Zhaoge was all smiles as he looked at him. A speck of red light was emitted from the tip of the bamboo cane as it traced a trajectory amidst space, forming a red line which accurately struck the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword once more. Not waiting for Kong Ping to change his stance, Yan Zhaoge's bamboo cane was like a tempestuous storm as it struck down ferociously towards his face. Streaks of red light flickered, shattering that long river of time formed of the time-flowing sword's sword light into many pieces. Time seemed to shatter at this moment. Kong Ping's gaze hardened as he abruptly realized Immortal trapping sword. You know, the immortal trapping sword of the immortal exterminating four swords. Exterminating immortal sharp, slaughtering immortal death, trapping immortal red light arose all around. The variations of the ending immortal sword are boundlessly wondrous, the blood of divinities drenching their robes. The immortal trapping sword, the sword of the end that slays time and space. When cultivated to the peak, a single sword can slay space and time, severing the long river of time and shattering countless worlds of space. From a certain perspective, the concept of the immortal trapping sword was similar to that of the spatial heavenly scripture and the aeon light heavenly scripture, as they mutually reinforced and countered each other. In actual combat, when the difference in strength between the two sides was not great, the immortal trapping sword could be said to be the bane of the spatial heavenly scripture and the aeon light heavenly scripture. Yen Zhaoge laughed. When I received your son back then, this Yen still did not know this sword. It was inevitable that I would not be able to serve you well. Let me make up for it with you today. Kong Ping inhaled deeply. So that's how it is. Last time, I already said that your sword Dao was sharp to the extreme and rather strange. Thinking about it now, it is also one of the immortal exterminating four swords, the immortal ending sword. You are actually proficient in both the immortal trapping sword and the immortal ending sword. Who would believe that you are not of the prime, clear, direct lineage? He said coldly. You won't have to live well in the world beyond worlds. Even if we don't kill you, others will. There is no need for you to worry about that. Yen Zhaoge smiled, nonchalantly, yet his smile was very icy cold. What gave you the misconception that you would be able to live past today? Amidst his laughter, each sword of Yen Zhaoge's was faster than the previous, as it was even faster than Kong Ping's. Where the red light passed, the chaotic space distorted and collapsed. Where the red light passed, the pale, stagnant world regained its original state. Where the red light passed, the vast river of time was directly severed. Even though Kong Ping was a heaven-defying genius with shocking strength, he was still beaten into a sorry state by Yen Zhaoge at this moment. The sword light that resembled water, that suffused the sky, was riddled with red cracks before finally mightily shattering. The high-grade sacred artifact, the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword, emitted a mournful wail as it was directly knocked out of Yen Zhaoge's dark green bamboo cane. To be continued. Chapter 878. Yen Zhaoge's dark green bamboo cane directly knocked the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword out of the air before he stabbed towards Kong Ping's throat. A treasure light lit up on Kong Ping's body. A medial grade, holy artifact robe manifested into runes that turned into a wave-like barrier in front of him. The water ripples looked weak, but their defensive power was not weak. When worn by a powerhouse like Kong Ping, it became even more powerful. But when the dark green bamboo staff fell, the ripples shattered without a sound. Not even the slightest ripple appeared. The robe on Kong Ping's body directly turned into flowing light and shattered inch by inch. A mid-grade sacred artifact had been extinguished by Yen Zhaoge with a single staff. Yen Zhaoge asked nonchalantly, "How many mid-grade sacred artifacts do you still have?" Kong Ping did not utter a word as he suddenly spun, his sword Dao being unleashed to the maximum as his sword light enveloped Yen Zhaoge. Where the radiance passed, Yen Zhaoge's movements seemed to slow, while Kong Ping's speed abruptly increased. Transforming into a streak of light, he instantly arrived at Yen Zhaoge's flank, substituting a sword with his finger as he stabbed towards Yen Zhaoge's temple. While the dark green bamboo cane was incomparably effective against sacred artifacts and treasures, its power was limited against an immortal bridge martial saint like him, being inferior to a high-grade sacred artifact. Kong Ping's willpower was firm. He wasn't discouraged. After seeing through this, he calmly retaliated. Without the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword in hand, he wanted to forcibly take on Yan Zhaoge with his strength that surpassed most experts of the 7th level of the martial saint realm. However, Yan Zhaoge substituted the bamboo cane for the sword, lightly brandishing it as a red glow flashed past. The sword light of the time-flowing sword that enveloped him was instantly cut apart. Yan Zhaoge tapped lightly with his bamboo cane, sword tip against sword tip, the tip of the bamboo cane accurately tapping on Kong Ping's fingertip. With a flash of red light, the concept of extinction that could sever time and space erupted. Kong Ping's sword-like index and middle fingers suddenly had blood splatter out. The crimson sword beam of the immortal trapping sword became brighter and sharper under the illumination of the blood-red light as it advanced forward. Kong Ping's entire arm was shattered from his fingertips to his palms, to his wrists, to his elbows, to his shoulders. The splattered blood floated in the air, spreading at an extremely slow speed. It was as if time and space had slowed down, as if everything had frozen. Kong Ping grunted and staggered backward. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, "That's not a bad idea. However, even if the two of us were to fight empty-handed, you would still not be my match." At this moment, the heavens and earth in the distance suddenly shook, and a boundless hazy radiance that was like a tide swiftly spread out and arrived in the blink of an eye. "You are Yan Zhaoge?" An aged voice rang out. It was Kong Ping's grandmaster, Shun Lingzi. He had originally been on guard against the sudden interference of Lin Hanhua and the Golden Court mountain martial practitioners, as he had acted as a contingency plan, patrolling the Royal Reed Sea as he was prepared to reinforce the Spirit Inheritance region or Kong Ping at any time. As he saw it, even if Yan Zhaoge had refined his acupoints to see divinity stepping into the 4th level of the martial saint realm and also possessing the extreme Yang seal, he still might not be Kong Ping's match. After all, Kong Ping's strength was at the Immortal Bridge stage. He could attempt to surpass levels and battle experts of the same cultivation level, at the same cultivation realm. Even he, Shun Lingzi, wanting to defeat this grand disciple whom he had the highest hopes for, would not be easy. However, never would Shun Lingzi have thought that within such a short period of time, Kong Ping would actually be dying beneath Yan Zhaoge's sword. The greatly shocked Shun Lingzi hurried over to save him. He noticed the bamboo cane in Yan Zhaoge's hand, as well as the dim radiance of the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword that lay by the side. His thoughts spun rapidly as Shun Lingzi had a general guess. While he was shocked and the situation was urgent, Shun Lingzi still calmly did not use the light Yin sword seal, instead just relying on his cultivation base to wield the time-flowing sword. Even so, his terrifying strength that was virtually comparable to that of a 9th level martial saint still caused the heavens and the earth to change color. "Yan Zhaoge, you have foiled the major matters of my generation, killing and wounding many of my descendants. You have been arrogant for long enough." Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge chuckled. "A few days ago, you came to trample on my broad Creed Mountain, coming and going as you pleased. Did that make you feel very good?" Facing the terrifying sword light that enveloped the heavens and covered the earth, Yan Zhaoge chuckled coldly, all-encompassing radiance suddenly appearing above his head. A great golden seal slowly rose into the air, its violent aura resembling the descent of the true sun into the human realm. Golden sunlight simultaneously surged within Yan Zhaoge's eyes, resembling two great suns. The powerful extreme Yang seal erupted with unprecedented radiance as it shot towards Shun Lingzi, as Yan Zhaoge himself was a seeing divinity martial saint. Wielding the extreme Yang seal was much more powerful than when he wielded it through the Northern Ocean clone. While he was still unable to unleash the full power of this high-grade sacred artifact, the power of the extreme Yang seal itself still surpassed that of most high-grade sacred artifacts. This was one of the peak existences of sacred artifacts. At its peak, it would be sufficient to slay an expert like Shun Lingzi, with a single blow. Currently, its power was not fully unleashed, as it was still violent to the extreme. Illuminated by the golden sunlight, it clashed with the all-encompassing sword light, both sides locked in battle. Time flowed, the great sun wanting to set. Golden light illuminated. The great sun seemed like it would forever hang high in the sky. With Yan Zhaoga's current cultivation base, he would not be able to maintain the extreme yang seal for long even after wielding it to this extent. Still, it was already sufficient for Yan Zhaoga to do other things. After temporarily resisting Shun Lingzi with the help of the extreme yang seal, Yan Zhaoga pointed out yin and yang intermingling as heaven and earth shifted. A portion of Shun Lingzi's sword light directly chopped towards Kongping. Even though he similarly cultivated in the time-flowing sword, this sword light was still sufficient to pose a lethal threat to the heavily injured Kongping. Kongping's expression changed as he hurriedly evaded. However, heavily injured, he was not faster than the sword light. Seeing this, Shun Lingzi knit his brows tightly. Finally, the light yin sword seal was taken out by him before he pressed it against the surface of the extreme yang seal. This high-grade sacred artifact of his possessed a special effect. Time would be temporarily sealed on people or objects that had been left behind by the sword seal, their strength temporarily sealed. Even a powerful existence like the extreme yang seal would be sealed for an instant. Shun Lingzi only needed this instant. However, Yan Zhaoga had long since been waiting for him as he raised the dark green bamboo cane in his hand, a red glow appearing. The next moment, Yan Zhaoga had already arrived before Shun Lingzi, striking towards the light yin sword seal. Shun Lingzi's gaze flickered as he quickly retracted the light yin sword seal before immediately substituting a sword with his finger, stabbing straight towards Yan Zhaoga himself. While he was even faster than Kongping, Yan Zhaoga's immortal trapping sword specifically countered their time-flowing sword. Even though Shun Lingzi was stronger, he was still restricted by it. Yan Zhaoga dispelled Shun Lingzi's sword light before striking out with the yin-yang finger once more, directing a portion of Shun Lingzi's sword light towards Kongping. Kongping barely managed to receive this sword. "You dare!" Shun Lingzi was greatly enraged as he exerted his full strength, jolting the extreme yang seal away. Yan Zhaoga laughed loudly. "Why wouldn't I dare?" He suddenly spun, attacking towards Kongping. The immortal trapping sword was connected to the profundities of time and space, as it was even faster than the time-flowing sword, as Yan Zhaoga arrived before Kongping in an instant. Those who kill will always be killed by others. This applies to everyone. He stabbed out with his sword, already piercing through Kongping's body. "To me, to your wife, to you, it is all the same." Kongping struggled, wanting to launch a final counterattack. Yan Zhaoga's expression did not change as he raised his palm. Shun Lingzi roared furiously. "Yan Zhaoga, come fight if you have the ability. Don't shout if you don't." Yan Zhaoga's palm descended without any hesitation, shattering Kongping's skull with a single palm, blood splattering everywhere. To be continued. Chapter 879. Seeing that the successor that he thought the best of was about to be killed by the enemy right in front of him, Shun Lingzi was enraged. He suddenly raised his hand, and a stream of light flew out. The stream of light flew into the sky and quickly spread out, turning into a hazy light dust that enveloped the world. At this moment, the flow of time in this world began to reverse. Reversing light divine stone. Go back in time, reverse time. The heavens and earth before him changed, the bloodstains vanishing as Kongping returned to normal, having not been beaten to death by Yan Zhaoga. Seeing this scene, Yan Zhaoga said coldly, "This Yan wants him dead by the third watch. Who can keep him alive till the fifth watch?" Wielding the extreme yang seal to obstruct the approaching Shun Lingzi, The dark green bamboo cane in Yan Zhaoga's hand caused numerous mournful streaks of red light to shoot through the horizon. Wherever the red light passed, space was torn apart and time was severed. The hazy light dust formed by the reversal light divine stone was quickly washed away. Only a few red marks were left between heaven and earth, as if they were scars. The mysteriousness of the light dust was forcefully erased. The effect that was being exerted was forcefully stopped. Time passed, and everything returned to its original state. A rain of blood erupted from Kong Ping's body once again, and he died. At the end of the day, he had still been slain by Yan Zhaoga right in front of Shun Lingzi. Seeing Yan Zhaoga's sword light break the miraculous effects of the reversal light divine stone and still rampantly slay Kong Ping with a single palm, the originally shocked and enraged Shun Lingzi instead calmed somewhat. The immortal trapping sword, it is actually the prime clear direct lineage's immortal trapping sword, Shun Lingzi said sinisterly. This southeastern Yangheaven territory is truly filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Saying thus, Shun Lingzi suddenly flashed his light Yin sword seal, shooting directly towards Yan Zhaoga. He ignored the extreme Yang seal, as the target of the light Yin sword seal was actually the dark green bamboo cane in Yan Zhaoga's hand. This high-grade sacred weapon of Shun Lingzi had another special effect. It could seal other people's sacred weapons. He wanted to try and see, with Yan Zhaoga's dark green bamboo cane, who exactly could restrain the other. Yan Zhaoga remained fearless. He raised the dark green bamboo cane in his hand, wielding the immortal trapping sword. Where the red radiance passed, time was shattered, cutting off the flow of time. The immortal trapping sword's light wore down the time sword's light, while the time sword seal's seal at the tip of the dark green bamboo staff collided. A strange seal instantly imprinted on the dark green bamboo stick. The dark green bamboo stick also trembled slightly in midair. The glow of the light Yin sword seal also dimmed a little. Yan Zhaoga's expression did not change in the slightest as purple light circulated on the dark green bamboo cane within his hands, the sigil imprinted on its tip instantly becoming faint and faint, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In the next moment, the dark green bamboo cane shook, and once again struck the light Yin sword seal. There was a pa sound. Shun Lingzi was almost unable to hold the light Yin sword seal tightly. Yan Zhaoga flicked out diagonally, the dark green bamboo cane striking towards the light Yin sword seal once more. What exactly is it? Shun Lingzi's expression was extremely ugly, and he could only helplessly withdraw the light Yin sword seal. The existence of this dark green bamboo cane had previously been mentioned to him by someone of the Grand Xian dynasty. However, an expert of Shun Lingzi's level would naturally not care about a treasure that could restrain a low-grade saint weapon, but not a mid-grade saint weapon. However, who would have thought that when Yan Zhaoga made his move this time, this dark green bamboo cane would actually be able to even deal with the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword and the light Yin sword seal? Shun Lingzi inhaled deeply, calming his heart as he unleashed all of his sword Dao cultivation, attacking towards Yan Zhaoga. With a high-grade sacred artifact, he was even more powerful. However, even without a high-grade sacred artifact, he was still an expert of the 8th level of the martial saint realm, the mid-immortal bridge stage. Also, he was an outstanding mid-immortal bridge martial saint who was virtually able to contend against 9th level martial saints. Currently, Shun Lingzi unleashed his sword light to the maximum. Numerous figures of him appeared between the heavens and the earth, innumerable as they encompassed the entire area, stabbing towards Yan Zhaoga in unison. These figures were not illusory, as they were all real. This was Shun Lingzi unleashing the time-flowing sword to the maximum, its speed virtually surpassing the boundaries of time and space as it occupied every single corner of every single moment. In that instant, where time differed by a hair's breadth Every single figure was real in that instant which belonged to them. That instant of time was really too short, as even immortal bridge martial saints would be hard-pressed to grasp it. Therefore, with so many Shenlingzis attacking in unison, while there was still a slight difference in timing at the end of the day, in the eyes of the enemy, it was as if they had all attacked simultaneously. Innumerable Shenlingzi, all real, attacked simultaneously, surrounding and attacking a single person. This was Shenlingzi's strongest sword, as it truly seemed about to shatter space and time, destroying the heavens and extinguishing the earth. Facing this sword, Yan Zhaoge only made a single movement. He formed a sword seal with his left hand, wielding the dark green bamboo cane with his right, holding it horizontally before his chest as a sword rose into the air. Infinite red light rose and fell amidst the surrounding space before instantly converging with Yan Zhaoge as its center. Yan Zhaoge brandished his sword, the red sword light about him expanding in all directions. The red light arrived at the outskirts, coming into contact with the numerous figures of Shenlingzi. Those figures instantly turned illusory from real, resembling illusory illusions, which then shattered one by one beneath the sunlight. Only a single real figure remained, attacking before Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge's sword collided with Shenlingzi's sword light. Frenzied waves instantly expanded into the surroundings where the two clashed. Shenlingzi's expression was solemn as it had never been before. Your cultivation base is so much lower than mine. Even if the immortal trapping sword counters the time-flowing sword, it should not be like this. Yan Zhaoge's expression was composed. The reason is very simple. Our actual strength is not as great as the gap between our cultivation bases. Supported by the yin-yang heavenly scripture, the vigorous true essence obtained from cultivating in the cyclic heavenly scripture was regenerated in an endless stream before being supplied to Yan Zhaoge for his attacks. At the very depths of everything, the profundities manifested from the merging of the three purities served as its core and source, unceasingly manifesting miraculous profundities. Even as Yan Zhaoge resisted this supreme sort of Shenlingzi's, the extreme yang seal up above had already smashed downwards towards Shenlingzi's head. Helpless, Shenlingzi could only retreat, helplessly. Still, Yan Zhaoge was unforgiving as he struck out with the immortal trapping sword once more. With the assistance of the high-grade sacred artifact, the extreme yang seal, Yan Zhaoge sent Shenlingzi of the 8th level of the martial saint realm scurrying all over the place. At this point, however despondent and furious Shenlingzi felt, he could only repress it within his heart. He wanted to wear down Yan Zhaoge. He did not believe that a mid-seeing divinity martial saint could be more powerful than him, a mid-immortal bridge martial saint. However, Yan Zhaoge, who possessed the foundation of peerless, cyclic, heavenly, yin-yang, and taiji martial arts, was really not much inferior to him in terms of the density of his true essence. In terms of the recovery rate of his true essence, Yan Zhaoge even surpassed him. In the end, Shenlingzi helplessly discovered that he of the 8th level of the martial saint realm was really unable to wear down Yan Zhaoge of the 5th level of the martial saint realm. Such a ridiculous and ludicrous thing that went against all logic just happened to be an indisputable fact. Therefore, a shocking scene that was destined to be recorded down in the annals of the Royal Reed Sea, and even the southeastern Yangheaven territory, and even the world beyond world's history appeared. Sword in hand, Yan Zhaoge pursued Shenlingzi, who was a sword cultivator of the 8th level of the martial saint realm, and whose strength was comparable to that of a 9th level martial saint, slaughtering his way all the way from the southern to the western seas of the Royal Reed Sea, no one able to stop him. Where his sword passed, it swept through everything before it. The two of them continued their pursuit, soon arriving in the vicinity of the Spirit Inheritance region. Continued to be. Chapter 880. Shenlingzi cultivated the time-flowing sword. The speed of his sword light was extremely fast. However, being entangled by Yan Zhaoge's immortal trapping sword, he was completely unable to increase his speed. It would still be fine if it was just Yan Zhaoge's attacks. The problem was that Yan Zhaoge was executing the immortal trapping sword whilst also wielding the extreme Yang seal. Faced with such a combination, Shun Lingzi, who was unable to use the light Yin sword seal, was powerless to resist. He only felt that it was ridiculous. As an exalted immortal bridge martial saint who was able to fully wield the power of a high-grade sacred artifact, he was currently only able to face his enemy with his bare fists. Yet his opponent, a seeing divinity martial saint, was pursuing him relentlessly with a high-grade sacred artifact. What was even more infuriating was that he was not like some immortal bridge martial saints who did not possess a high-grade sacred artifact. He had a high-grade sacred weapon and more than one mid-grade sacred weapon with him. The light Yin sword seal was not an ordinary high-grade sacred artifact, but it could not be used against an enemy. Otherwise, it would have ended up like the cloud circulating heavenly light sword that had originally been his accompanying sword, which had been passed down to Kong Ping and the other descendants. In the end, it had been knocked down by Yan Zhaoge, before he had kept it in the myriad dragon palace, neither hurriedly nor slowly. This feeling could no longer be described as depressing. It was simply vexing, fighting all the way from the South Sea to the West Sea. Shun Lingzi was already covered in wounds. A single injury was not serious, but as it accumulated, coupled with the fact that he had not had the time to suppress and treat his injuries, Shun Lingzi was already starting to feel like he could not take it anymore. This further affected his strength and speed, causing him to fall into a disadvantageous position. Shun Lingzi had already calmed down by now. Although his heart was filled with oppressive anger and hatred, his thoughts were clear. He did not return to the capital of the Grand Xian dynasty. In that case, he would be safe with the help of the capital's grand formation. Still, things would be bad for Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing, who were still in the Spirit Inheritance region. Yan Zhaoge had killed his way back to the Spirit Inheritance region and was caught in a pincer attack by those of Broad Creed Mountain. Shun Lingzi had hurried all the way from the South Sea to the Spirit Inheritance region of the West Sea precisely so that he could rendezvous with Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing. When the time comes, everyone's strength will be gathered to plot a backup plan. With Daoist Shi, a formation expert, as backup, there was a possibility of turning the tables. While he had been pursued by Yan Zhaoge along the way, having paid a considerable price, seeing that the Spirit Inheritance region was within sight now, his initial goal having been achieved, Shun Lingzi still heaved a sigh of relief slightly. As they neared, they saw Daoist Shi's Heaven-Earth Divination Formation currently enveloping the Spirit Inheritance region as it battled with Broad Creed Mountain's Tai Imperial Breaking Formation. Within the formation, other than King Xuanqing, Daoist Shi, and the Grand Xian dynasty experts, there was clearly another person present. It was a middle-aged scholar with a crown of stars on his head. With a wave of his hand, he could pluck the stars and catch the moon. The star-plucking practitioner Guan lied, a late immortal bridge martial saint. His target was also Broad Creed Mountain. Seeing this scene, Shun Lingzi was completely at ease. With this person also being enemies with Broad Creed Mountain, Shun Lingzi had sufficient confidence in turning the tables on them. While Yan Zhaoge's strength surpassed the limits of his cultivation base, being able to beat Shun Lingzi to the point of only being able to flee aside from his high-grade sacred artifact, it was also thanks to the immortal trapping sword that countered the time-flowing sword. When both of them were in peak condition, Guan Li was actually not much stronger than Shun Lingzi. Yet, the martial arts that Guan Li cultivated and were not countered by the immortal trapping sword like the Aeon Light Heavenly Scripture. Shun Lingzi just had to switch opponents with Guan Li, and victory would immediately be reversed. At this point, Lingzi felt at ease as all his despondency and hatred seemed about to be alleviated. On the battlefield of the spirit inheritance region, everyone sensed Lingzi and Yan Zhaoge approaching one after the other. While they were rather puzzled as to why Kang Ping was nowhere to be seen, and rather shocked that Lingzi actually seemed to be unable to defeat Yan Zhaoge in the midst of a fierce battle, they did not think too much about it. Daoist Shi circulated the heaven-earth divination formation, preparing to receive Lingzi within as well as obstruct Yan Zhaoge from behind. Now, Yan Zhaoge, who was in pursuit of Lingzi, abruptly accelerated. His internal organs, his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys vaguely lit up with five-colored light as well. The light circulated, all converging towards his liver. There, it formlessly manifested, finally completely transforming into flames. A divinity of flame that sat within Yan Zhaoge's liver opened its eyes at this moment. The fiery red light of thunder surged. After the five elements creation thunder had split into five, the blazing flames and blazing thunder that Yan Zhaoge grasped congregated here, as well before detonating the infinite qi of fire here. A violent, explosive force was born at this moment, causing Yan Zhaoge's speed and strength to soar madly within a short period of time. He stabbed out with the immortal trapping sword, traversing space as he arrived directly behind Lingzi. If the other party dared to not halt, Yan Zhaoge would stab straight through him. Lingzi inhaled deeply, swiveling and striking out with his sword, blocking Yan Zhaoge's attack. The extreme yang seal smashed down simultaneously from above. Lingzi exerted all his might, barely avoiding this attack once more. However, Yan Zhaoge's gaze flickered as he suddenly punched towards Lingzi with his left hand. As his fist descended, the heavens and earth before Lingzi's eyes seemed to suddenly turn dim, radiance being extinguished. A speck of light suddenly lit up amidst that boundless primordial darkness, bright and pure. That was precisely Yan Zhaoge's fist. As his fist was completely punched out, Yan Zhaoge's left hand seemed to have been split into two by a formless boundary. One half shone with bright radiance, glistening with life, while the other was merged within the dim darkness, hard to see. However, gazing over, Lingzi saw that the surface of that fist seemed to be covered by a layer of dim radiance, not bright, not dazzling as it was all blurry. It actually contained some signs of chaos. Lingzi immediately recognized its origins, the dim radiant emperor's martial art, the dim radiant 12 arts, having connected the immortal trapping sword and the extreme yang seal. He had already been a spent force. Now, he could only summon his remaining courage, shielding himself with his sword light as he forcibly resisted this fist of Yan Zhaoge's. Just having come into contact with that fist of chaos, the sword light immediately dissipated. It was not broken through like it had been against the immortal trapping sword, instead directly dissipating into nothingness. Lingzi had long since been prepared for this. He knew that the dim radiant emperor's dim, radiant 12 arts touched upon the principles of infinite chaos somewhat. However, it would be impossible for him to completely dissipate his sword light with the dim radiant 12 arts. Amidst his thoughts, Lingzi suddenly discovered that the power of chaos contained within Yan Zhaoge's fist far surpassed his imagination. The chaos expanded, extinguishing all. The world seemed to have returned to before the heavens and earth had opened at this moment, the myriad scenes no longer existing. No yin, no yang, no before, no after, no beginning, no end, no movement, no stability. That existence that seemed to be able to contain all things, to create and extinguish all things unceasingly destroyed the sword light of the time, flowing sword. The next moment, the chaos mightily exploded. It was as though the universe had opened once more. The violent force instantly pierced through Shen Lingzi's protective sword light, mightily slamming onto his body. Even with Shen Lingzi's high cultivation base and shocking strength, he was still unable to withstand this blow head-on against his vitals. A lofty 8th level martial saint expert spat out a mouthful of blood in reverse, spraying into the air. Shen Lingzi, receive another of my great shattering brightness fist. Yan Zhaoge did not cease in his attacks, retracting the chaos as the power of light and darkness was born. The boundless darkness retreated, transforming completely into immeasurable brightness. Amidst the brightness, 12 heavenly wheels circulated amidst space, resembling 12 divinities of radiance as they illuminated the infinite space. The next moment, the incarnations of the 12 gods of light shattered together. Infinite brightness shattered. A power reached its peak before shattering to the point where it no longer existed. It was not that darkness had reappeared at the end of the radiance. Instead, the simultaneous destruction of the Daos of light and darkness brought about a boundless, terrifying tribulation that was infinitely great. Yan Zhaoge cultivated in the dim, radiant 12 arts and integrated the essence of the peerless heavenly scripture within, creating his own martial art, the great shattering brightness fist. Beneath a single fist, yin and yang ceased to exist. All creation extinguished. The violent force directly punched a massive, bloodied hole through the center of Shen Lingzi's body. Let alone Daoist Shi, King Xuanqing, and the others, even Guan Lide was rendered wide-eyed and tongue-tied as he saw this. To be continued. Chapter 881. After having battled intensely for a long time, Shen Lingzi believed that he already had a sufficient understanding of Yan Zhaoge's methods. He knew that Yan Zhaoge was proficient in the immortal trapping sword, possibly even the immortal ending sword. He discovered that Yan Zhaoge seemed to have cultivated in the cyclic heavenly scripture and yin-yang heavenly scripture of the Jade Clear direct lineage, even having some hints of the life creation heavenly scripture within. He sensed that while Yan Zhaoge was unable to exert its full power when wielding a supreme treasure like the extreme Yang seal, it was still very much like he had truly obtained the direct lineage of the exalted solar luminary. He also knew that there was definitely something wrong with Yan Zhaoge's myriad dragon palace. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for a high-grade sacred artifact like the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword to be suppressed so easily. Even though the cloud-circulating heavenly light sword had been knocked out of his hand and virtually ownerless at that time. Therefore, other than guarding against the dark green bamboo cane and the extreme Yang seal, he was also guarding against the myriad dragon palace. Shen Lingzi had even remained vigilant in case Yan Zhaoge was able to wield that legendary immortal artifact left behind by the dim radiant emperor. While it felt completely impossible, Yan Zhaoge had already done too many impossible things, as he had no choice but to be careful. Still, he had not thought that all of this had been Yan Zhaoge's preparations for this moment, having fought all the way from the South Sea to the West Sea. All the techniques that should have been used had already been used, as they even had the feeling of getting used to it. As the swords clashed, everyone knew what techniques the other party would use in response. While Shen Lingzi had been beaten badly by Yan Zhaoge along the way, he still had the confidence of successfully joining up with Daoist Shi and the others. However, just as he had arrived in the Spirit Inheritance region and seen Guan Lide, Daoist Shi, King Xuanqing, and the others just having felt hope of turning the tables, Yan Zhaoge suddenly unleashed a killing blow. This blow directly consigned Shen Lingzi to eternal damnation. He had first been struck by the profundities of the peerless heavenly scripture, breaking through his protective sword light and injuring his chest. He had then followed up with a grand shattering brightness fist at the exact same spot, directly punching a large hole through Shen Lingzi's chest from front to back. Shen Lingzi's flesh, blood, bones, and internal organs had all been shattered into smithereens, while Shun Lingzi of the 8th level of the martial saint realm did not cultivate in martial arts like the life creation heavenly scripture or the longevity martial scripture. His life force was still extremely powerful. Despite having been so injured, he had not immediately perished, but the shadow of death had already shrouded his heart, looking at Broad Creed Mountain in the distance. When he had come here previously, while he had been defeated and had not been able to breach Broad Creed Mountain's headquarters, he had never thought that this would be the place where his bones would be buried. Shun Lingzi gazed rather laboriously at Yan Zhaoge, finding it hard to believe that he would actually die at the hands of a 5th-level martial saint one day. However, after punching out, Yan Zhaoge immediately retracted his fist, not even looking at the results of his punch, as he directly shot towards Broad Creed Mountain. Shun Lingzi widened his eyes. Those of the Grand Xian dynasty all watched in shock as their strongest expert, Shun Lingzi, was actually heavily injured by a junior of the 5th level of the martial saint realm. In front of everyone, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he suffered a crushing defeat and was about to lose his life. While they had already witnessed Yan Di's strength, everyone was still inexplicably shocked at this moment. And at this moment, Yan Zhaoge directly abandoned the heavily injured Shun Lingzi, killing over to King Xuanqing like a tempestuous storm. Because the scene before him was too unexpected, King Xuanqing was also momentarily stunned. However, he immediately regained his wits. Just as he was about to head over to assist Shun Lingzi, he had not thought that Yan Zhaoge would actually directly change his target over here. Giving Shun Lingzi a fatal blow here was not just to numb him earlier, but also to make use of Shun Lingzi's defeat to shock the others of the Grand Xian dynasty. For veteran experts like Daoist Shi and King Xuanqing, who had experienced countless battles, no matter how shocking something was, they would still be able to recover in an instant. However, just this one instant was already sufficient for Yan Zhaoge. The extreme Yang seal slammed down towards King Xuanqing, with the momentum of the sky collapsing. While King Xuanqing's mid-grade sacred artifact spear had been broken by Yan Di, its influence was limited. He decisively substituted a spear with his fist, executing his supreme martial arts in blocking the mighty blow of the extreme Yang seal. At the same time, however, Yan Zhaoge raised his bamboo cane high, drawing an arc through the air. Then he swung it in a full circle, striking towards King Xuanqing. Seeing the bamboo cane, King Xuanqing seemed to think of something. However, the situation did not permit him to hesitate, as he immediately stimulated the 5 fires, 7 foul armor on his body to defend. Yet, as the bamboo cane descended, the all-encompassing flames were instantly extinguished. The silhouettes of the 7 fowls collapsed one after another. The radiance of the high-grade sacred artifact, the 5 fires, 7 foul armor, instantly dimmed. Having gained the upper hand, Yan Zhaoge did not spare him as the dark green bamboo cane in his hand came smashing downwards in rapid succession. At the same time, he executed a cyclic heavenly seal with his left hand, bolstering the extreme Yang seal with his extreme Yang seal, causing its momentum to grow even more violent. A short moment later, King Xuanqing understood why Shun Lingzi had been beaten to the point of having bumps all over his head earlier. As he counterattacked, Yan Zhaoge used the extreme Yang seal to negate a portion of his power before lightly tapping out with his yin-yang finger. King Xuanqing's attack instantly changed direction, instead helping Yan Zhaoge block Daoist Shi's attack. Struck by the dark green bamboo cane, the flames of the 5 fires, 7 foul armor were extinguished, its radiance dissipating as it virtually seemed about to disintegrate on its own. Yan Zhaoge struck out with the extreme Yang seal once more, causing King Xuanqing to nearly plummet from midair. Seeing this scene, the star-plucking practitioner Guan Lai too felt greatly shocked. Is that Yan Zhaoge? King Xuanqing aside, while Shun Lingzi was an 8th-level martial saint, he had the ability to challenge Guanlide of the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm. Now, however, he had virtually died at Yen Zhaoga's hands. How could Guanlide not be shocked? The dark green bamboo cane in Yen Zhaoga's hand caused Guanlide's eyelids to twitch. What exactly is that thing? An immortal artifact left behind by the dim Radiant Emperor? It doesn't look like it. On Broad Creed Mountain, everyone smiled before roaring towards the heavens in unison. Led by Yen Di, the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation directly rose into the air, switching from defense to offense. Bolstered by the Grand Formation, wherever Yen Di's saber passed, saber chi that could topple mountains and overturn seas hacked unceasingly towards Guanlide. Meanwhile, Yen Zhaoga gave up on King Xuanqing now, gazing at Daoist Shi. Having just rescued the heavily injured Shen Lingzi, Daoist Shi instantly felt a chill run down his spine as Yen Zhaoga's gaze swept past him. Yen Zhaoga smiled. You must be Daoist Shi. Your attainments and formations are truly superb. With that, the immortal trapping sword moved, red light appearing all around. This sword not only hacked through time, it hacked through space as well. The Heaven-Earth Divination Formation was a supreme formation that could shift space. However, it was precisely because of this that the immortal trapping sword was able to deal with it even more easily if one was not proficient in formations. Even if one was proficient in the immortal trapping sword, it would still not be an easy thing to break through the Tai Imperial Breaking Formation and the Heaven-Earth Divination Formation. However, this problem did not exist for Yen Zhaoga. His true body was here now, and his attainments and formations could only be higher than Daoist Shi's. Consecutively seizing the position of Grand Unity, Yen Zhaoga's immortal trapping sword hacked through space as the Heaven-Earth Divination Formation before him instantly showed signs of collapsing. Daoist Shi was greatly shocked. Immortal trapping sword? You... Yen Zhaoga laughed loudly, as he had already arrived. With a single sword, he first ended the heavily injured and dying Shen Lingzi, who could only await his death. Shen Lingzi's eyes seemed on the verge of imploding as his head was separated from his body, flying straight into the horizon. To be continued.